We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, everybody. Lots to go at today, starting with another attack in Europe.
Yes, this time in Austria, a Syrian asylum seeker is arrested on suspicion of murdering a 14-year-old boy in a seemingly random stabbing attack.
Well, it's left everyone asking, hasn't it, when will this end?
And elsewhere, pressure mounts on NATO members to up spending as the Munich conference comes to a close. Could Starmer overrule his own Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and boost Britain's defence budget?
Yes, it sounds like everybody is finally listening and prepared to spend more on defence. It looks like we will have to pay more for our security. That leaves big questions about where the money will come from.
Well, it certainly does, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a European army. But does this make mass war more likely?
I believe that time has come. The armed forces of Europe must be created.
And a senior Labour figure, yes, Lord Hermer, well, he's been reported to the Prime Minister's Ethics Committee. It's also emerged he previously represented a 9/11 terrorist. Does he have to go?
I think it's becoming untenable for Lord Hermer, isn't it now? But elsewhere, the government's Chagos deal is in jeopardy. It's in tatters, actually, because shock horror, one of its orchestrators, is implicated in a money laundering probe.
It was a huge day of Premier League action, with Arsenal maintaining their title pursuit of Liverpool. Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim, meanwhile, has blamed himself and his players for the latest round of redundancies at Old Trafford. And tennis reacts to the 3-month doping ban handed down to world number 1, Yannick Sinner. More later.
Good morning. Once again, many of us are going to see cloudy skies today. There'll be a little bit of rain and also some hail snow in places. Find out where with me coming up a little later on.
Yes, well, welcome along. It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Emily Carver, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, yes, hello, everybody. I mean, it really is a massive, massive, massive news day. You know, this time yesterday we were all talking about J.D. Vance, weren't we? We were saying, well, his speech there about how there's a problem within Europe, we've let that problem in, how do we deal with it? And then right on cue, unfortunately, there appears to have been another attack, this time in Austria, this time by a Syrian asylum seeker, stabbed 6, killed 1. It's every day now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just terrible. And what are our European leaders across the board going to do about it? You know, they've toughened a bit of rhetoric on deportations and cracking down on this sort of thing, but what are they fundamentally going to change to make sure Europeans are safe in their own continent, in their own countries? I mean, it just days after that car ploughed into those people in Munich, the day before the Munich Security Conference, and then this in Austria, a neighbouring country.
Well, just a little bit later on in the show, we're going to take you to Austria. We want to hear about what it's like on the ground. Like I said, there's some other news stories knocking around today. There's big defence spending, European army. There's 2 stories rolled into one there, because if Starmer is at odds with Rachel Reeves, where are we going to get the money from? Can she stick around? Do we actually want a European army? Some people think that would make us less safe.
I want a lot of views on the old European army and whether that would be a good idea. I'm sure you do at home. I mean, firstly, what chance is there that every single European country is going to agree that they want to send troops to a particular foreign conflict? I mean, the chances are pretty slim to none. Just do away with national sovereignty, shall we?
Well, I think the problem is that there may be a rush to war. So, for example, some of the Balkan states might care more about an incident that's going on. France might have a vested interest in another part of the world to us, etc., etc. Before you know it, we're embroiled in all of that. Do we really want it? But bearing in mind that currently our standing army could fit into Old Trafford Football Stadium, you know, that is a bit of a question. And there's a slightly lighter one that we'd like to talk to you about today. So DEI, especially in the police force. Now, Emily and I were talking about this.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, that sort of thing.
There we go. Now, I was out and about yesterday. I was walking Emily's parents' dog.
You were, which is very kind of you.
Little Bob.
Brownie points for Patrick.
Good stuff for Bobby. Now, Bobby and I witnessed an arrest in a park. And,
oh, dear.
One of the police officers that got out of this car can only be described as a heifer. They were absolutely massive.
A pregnant cow?
No, you could have walked away from them. You could have rolled away from them, honestly. And I was thinking, well, hang on a minute, what fitness checks have they actually passed?
I think they've scrapped some of those, haven't they?
Well, clearly, right? And
but yeah, I at the farmers' protest the other day in Whitehall, I did notice. Now, I don't mean to be cruel to this young woman. I'm sure she's perfectly nice. I'm sure she's perfectly capable in many ways. But she was about 5'1", about 6 stone, and was shivering in the cold. And I just thought, you know, if someone rocked up, God forbid, with a knife or something, I mean, I'm not sure I'd feel protected.
Well, look, do we need to just be recruiting more big, burly men into the police force? Is that ultimately who you would send to a very serious incident? We're talking to big, burly men. Aidan's still
very
here.
Good.
Just before we go to our first guest.
And again, can I just used to say, there used to be a height restriction on male police officers.
Oh, yeah, what was it?
I think it was about 5'11", 6 foot.
OK.
Significantly higher than it is now. I think they've just done away with it now. You might have to check the specifics on that, but I think that's actually correct.
I think they've done away with all of it. What you need now is a degree.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, by the way.
I know.
I don't think you need degrees to be a police officer.
No, you
just
don't.
need to be willing and able and big enough.
Common sense. A lot of common sense is needed.
Yeah. Well, there's lots to go at, and I sense that all of these topics and the other ones we're going to talk about are going to get you firing on gbnews.com/your say.
Absolutely.
So please do get in. Don't be shy today. We've got loads of time today to hear your views. But let's start with the main story that we are leading with, and it is that a 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker has now been arrested on suspicion of stabbing several passers-by in southern Austria.
Yes, it appeared to be a frenzied attack, and it's left a 14-year-old boy dead and injured 4 or 5 others.
Yeah, indeed. 2 others are remaining in hospital, and the suspect, who is yet to be named, has since been arrested. Just for a little bit of context, it, of course, comes just a couple of days after an Afghan asylum seeker, a failed Afghan asylum seeker who was known to police, killed at least 2 people in Munich and injured several others by driving a car through a crowd of people. And it also comes, doesn't it, just a couple of days after J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, warned Europe about this exact thing. So, Should we get the thoughts now of former police detective Peter Blexley? Peter, thank you very much for joining us, especially at this time in the morning on a Sunday. Always great to have you on. Your initial impression, really, I mean, I'll be honest with you about what mine was. Here we go again.
On a cold, hard mortuary slab lies the body of a 14-year-old child who was somebody's much-loved son, grandson, sibling, best friend in the world, classmate, and that young child will never be seen again. In neighbouring Germany, in another mortuary, lies the body of a young mother and her 2-year-old child. These people all killed, and many, many others seriously injured by horrendous, murdering monsters who, quite frankly, in my opinion, should not have been anywhere near Europe, but should have been back in the countries that they originated from.
Well, yeah, I mean, Peter, what do we do about this? You know, you've got European leaders saying they're getting tough on this. You've got European leaders saying, you know, we're going to restore control of the borders and everything. What faith do Europeans have that our leaders can actually get to grips with this issue?
I'm sick of the rhetoric, and I'm also deeply concerned because sources tell me that our courageous security services and counter-terrorism police are thwarting plots in the UK on an almost daily basis. We will be next, or we will be targeted for an attack like this very soon, I fear. And until we have politicians that grow a spine and turn the rhetoric into action, until we have a criminal justice system with courageous judges who will deport those who really should not be here, those with criminal convictions, those over whom we have reasonable reason to suggest they may be a threat. Until they are, quite frankly, and pardon my clumsy language, until they are rounded up, put on planes and deported, then this threat for us, all of us, is very real.
Well, look, Peter, I'm sure you, like many people, are getting déjà vu, not simply because of what's happened a couple of days ago, but we all remember that period around 2016 and 2017 when Europe's floodgates first opened to a huge number of Syrian refugees. And what did we start seeing? Terror attack, terror attack, terror attack, terror attack. There was a period there where it really, really kicked off around Europe. And now, here we go again. There appears to be a bit of momentum behind this stuff. And let's be very clear about where we are at the minute, Peter, because this individual, were he in Britain and were he have to committed this attack in Britain, or were the Afghan from the other day to have committed this attack in Britain, we would have arrested them, we would try them in this country, we would put them in prison in this country, but we would still not be able to deport them, Peter. And that has to be wrong, surely.
Of course it's wrong. And that's because over recent years and decades, the lunatic left, the hand-wringing liberals, so many of whom pollute our criminal justice system, either as lawyers or judges, have allowed this system to be abused. They have stripped law enforcement and right-minded people of having any way in which to deport so many of these people who quite simply pose a threat, a risk to us all, to our loved ones, and should not be here. Our nation needs to grow a spine. Our politicians need to put us first.
And Peter, people are allowed to be angry about this. You know, yesterday we were talking about JD Vance. Now, his speech at the Munich Security Conference didn't go down very well with some European leaders. You had Olaf Scholz saying that his comments were what did he say? He said they were unacceptable. Unacceptable. And others said he shouldn't be doing this sort of thing about Europe. But he highlighted that there's an issue within in this country. Let's have a little look.
And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
OK, well...
I mean, Peter, people don't like hearing it, though. Peter, we're going to have to leave it there, though. But thank you so much for coming on so early in the morning on a Sunday. Former police detective Peter Blexley there.
Thank you, mate.
Reacting to the news overnight.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Always a pleasure to have his views. But it really is bumpy news day. Do you get your views coming in on what's been going on around Europe? Because I'm very keen to hear from you on this. It's gbnews.com/yours say. But let's whiz ourselves over to another huge story of the day. I mean, the Prime Minister is apparently now planning to override Chancellor Rachel Reeves, good old Rachel from accounts, in an effort to raise defence spending.
Yes, as the NATO conference in Munich does come to a close, President Trump has called on member countries to increase spending to 5% of GDP. Wow, that's more than double what the UK currently spends.
It's big news, is because it comes hot off the heels, doesn't it, of Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky demanding a European army.
Yes, that's as he tries to bolster support after Trump's special envoy to Ukraine confirmed European allies will be excluded from any peace deal talks.
So, in response, it's believed that French President Emmanuel Macron has called an emergency summit on this issue. Keir Starmer is urging Europe to take a greater role. I think we can go live now to Munich again to bring us the very latest on this with our political correspondent from what does appear to be a very chilly Munich, I must say, Catherine Forster. Catherine, this is potentially huge. It's kind of two stories rolled into one, isn't it, really? An increase in defence spending with Starmer maybe overriding Rachel Reeves, but also this bigger picture of where that fits in with the European army, Catherine.
Yes, good morning from Munich. Before we come to this really key existential, as David Lammy has called it, moment for European security, just worth saying that I'm standing here in Munich. It's less than a mile from where I'm standing to where I was just 2 days ago at the scene where that car rammed into a crowd, an Afghan asylum seeker, and as we've heard, overnight, just a couple of 100 miles south from here now in southern Austria, in Villach, a Syrian asylum seeker has killed a 14-year-old boy. An absolutely incredible state of affairs, as JD Vance, the vice president, mentioned here. But yes, there is a huge amount of activity now. It was all triggered by the news that Donald Trump had talked for an hour and a half to Vladimir Putin the other day, and then the very, very clear warnings we've been hearing at the Munich Security Conference. First, JD Vance not talking about security in terms of Russia and Europe, but talking about free speech and migration. And then this incredible speech yesterday from Volodymyr Zelensky, a very different reception from the leaders here in Munich. JD Vance went down like a lead balloon. Zelensky, lots of applause and a standing ovation at the end. But yes, he's called for an army of Europe. He said effectively that it sounds like Europe is in many ways on its own now, and we need to look after ourselves because it sounds like America's not going to do it. So, defence spending, let's face it, hasn't been as much as it might have been for many, many years, not just in the UK, but across Europe. Those days are clearly ending. Donald Trump has said we've all got to spend 5%. Britain currently spends 2.3%, and it had promised to set out a pathway to 2.5%, but we don't know when that's going to happen or even when we get the announcement. Now, it sounds like back in London, The Prime Minister has been heeding all of these warnings. He has, in fact, met with the Chief of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, military bosses, and it does sound like defence spending is going to be raised, and soon, potentially to 2.65%. Now that goes directly in opposition to Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, of course. She already finds herself with pretty much no money. Her fiscal headroom has evaporated. There's a spring statement coming up in a couple of months. Previously, when we had that big tax rising budget, they said that that was a one-off for this Parliament. They pretty much said that they weren't going to come back for more. Well, it looks very likely that that is going to have to change. And in terms of the war in Ukraine, we also know that the US and Russian negotiators are going to be meeting in Saudi Arabia, and that Europe, it seems, is going to be completely cut out of how a war ends within Europe itself.
Fascinating, Catherine, just how much the conversation has changed among European leaders over defence spending since Trump got in. Thank you very much. Catherine Forster will be checking in with you very soon.
She can warm up a bit as well, bless her. She's stuck out there in a freezing Munich doing a job for us early doors.
But, at GB News, we love to hear what you think, of course, and we are running a poll, as we do every day, and it is...
It is. Do you agree with Zelensky that Europe needs its own army? I can see this kicking off in your say already. gbnews.com/your say. Look, do we need a European army? Should we be a part of it, even if Europe does get one? So let us know what you think. Live results throughout the course of the day. The end result will, of course, be on Nana Akwia's show later on today. For all our latest polls, news and how to vote, go to gbnews.com/poll.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's a big question. I know what I think, but let us know what you do. But in other news, Sir Keir Starmer's Chagos Islands deal has been hit by yet another dramatic revelation.
Indeed. So the chief mastermind behind this deal, former Mauritian Prime Minister, has been questioned over an alleged money laundering scandal. Who could have seen that coming, by the way, as the sums of money we were due to pay Mauritius kept going up and up and up.
Right, and weren't they saying that it's reparations, that this money is reparations? Anyway, the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, is urging the Prime Minister to abandon the deal, citing concerns about corruption. They're calling it a dodgy deal now.
They're
calling it a dodgy deal. Shall we talk to political commentator Duncan Barks, who's appeared in the studio? Duncan, thank you very much indeed.
Morning.
Yeah, this deal is starting to look a bit dodgy, isn't it, Duncan?
Dodgy, some might use the word grubby. I mean, the figures involved in this just continue to go up. I mean, we certainly know that there's at least 9 billion quid at stake. Some reports are saying it could be 18 billion pounds over the coming decades. I suspect quite a few GB News viewers were going, that's money we can ill afford, given some of the other cuts have been made in Rachel Reeves' budget. It's so much cash. So the Sunday Telegraph have got this on their front page this morning, and it's quite a delicious revelation regarding the former Prime Minister, as you mentioned, of Mauritius, who masterminded this deal, has been, well, the Telegraph used the term interrogated. I think the word is probably questioned. The name is Pravind Jagnuth. Members of his family were hauled in for questioning by an organisation called the MFC, or rather the FCC, which is the Mauritian Financial Crimes Commission. The fascinating bit of detail in this is the police had earlier raided the premises of an associate of this former Prime Minister.
Right. Yeah.
You ready for this? Where they say they found suitcases stuffed with tens of thousands of pounds worth of cash.
It's got it all there.
In more than a dozen currencies, Rolex and Cartier watches and UK visas. So nothing potentially dodgy there.
UK visas?
Yep. And the associate denied the suitcases and the items were his. So the plot kind of thickens. And, I mean, this is just another chapter, if you like, in the chaos of this Chagos deal, which has been, you know, it's been fraught from start to finish. We know that in terms of global geopolitics that Donald Trump is not particularly impressed with this idea that we're going to hand the islands back for security reasons. And quite rightly and understandably, the Conservatives this morning are making a lot of capital out of this. The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel, urging Keir Starmer to halt the deal in its tracks.
Let's just again, just for our viewers and listeners, let's just drag this right. So this is the bloke, Pravind Jugnauth, who was leader of Mauritius, when this deal was first, put out there.
Yeah.
He then lost that election.
Correct.
And Navin Ramgoolam, who is the successor, does not really appear to want this deal.
He's criticised the deal.
He's criticised it. So the bloke that we were initially going to do this deal for is now accused of widespread money laundering. He's been interrogated over it at least.
Yep.
An associate of him has been found with a bag full of readies in a variety of different currencies, Rolex, Cartier watches, UK visas.
Yes.
I mean, is this
totally normal?
Is this not the case, seriously, where we look at these countries and we put them on a par with us? Was this actually could be an incredibly corrupt nation, and we're potentially about to lob 9 billion quid or 18 billion quid at them?
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. This country, our country, Great Britain, doesn't have the greatest track record when it comes to giving money to nations who are, dare I say it, 100% clean. It gets us into the whole area of foreign aid, doesn't it?
It does.
We whack vast amounts of taxpayers' money. It's not government money, it's taxpayers' money to various countries around the world in the name of foreign aid because we think it's the right thing to do, or some politician has a pet hobby horse and thinks, we should chuck some cash their way. We don't know where that money goes. There's no clear audit trail with some of this cash.
But there's people who believe, every country, equally corrupt. No, I'm sorry, Britain is quite uniquely less corrupt than most of the world out there. Although perhaps we're getting more
too honest.
Too honest.
Too honest. Too honest.
So I mean, this is it'll be fascinating to see what happens. And again, there's a lot of political pressure from the Conservatives and elsewhere saying, look, this Chagos deal needs to be stopped and paused for now.
100%.
And it'll be interesting to see what Starmer does with it.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting more of an update with this in the next hour as well. This is a big story, and it's an embarrassment. It's a huge embarrassment for Keir Starmer. One of several, actually, because, again, a little bit later on, we're going to be talking about his great mate, Lord Hermer, who appears to have been, willing to try to get compensation for one of the masterminds of the 9/11 terror attacks. And,
you don't have to represent these people.
No, you don't.
You don't have to. It's a choice.
If you are that busy, he says the cab rank rule. It's important to put that across. I was just doing my job. I'm sorry, but if you are at that senior level in the law in this country, you can always say you're too busy. Why is there a pattern here of people that he's represented going right the way through, it seems, to one of the masterminds of the 9/11 terror attack? Very odd. It's all very odd. But that's not going
a guy who pled guilty to the murder of 2,900 people.
2,900 people, yeah. Better represent him. Anyway, Craig Snell now with your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met. The cloudy and cold theme is set to continue today. There'll be a little bit of patchy rain here and there, chiefly across Northern Ireland throughout the day, but some North Sea coast also seeing some outbreaks of rain. As that moves a bit further inland, we could just see a little bit of hill snow here and there. But for most of us, it is rather cloudy. Best of the sunshine once again will be up across the far northwest of Scotland. It may well just cheer up from time to time, also down towards Devon and Cornwall. But for most of us, temperatures struggling again, 4 to 6 degrees at best. Some milder air just down towards the far southwest. Here we could see highs reaching at 9 to 10 degrees. So as we see at Sunday afternoon, move into the evening again, the clearest of the skies will be up across parts of northwestern Scotland. Eastern Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain continuing, but it's more especially across Northern Ireland where we'll potentially see some heavier rain from time to time. And then for most of England and Wales, it's generally dry, but rather cloudy. A little bit of mist and murk also across the hills. Into the evening hours, we'll see the cloud maybe break up across parts of northern England, maybe later on down towards the far southeast too. So where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will just see a touch of frost. But for most of us, I think most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Just need to keep an eye on the risk of some rain just beginning to move into western Scotland as we start Monday morning. As we move throughout the day, that may well just bump into the colder air, so we could just see some sleet and snow in places. So do keep an eye on the forecast if you have any travel plans across Scotland on Monday. But for most of us, it is a fairly grey picture once again, although exceptions down towards the southeastern corner, some sunshine here developing, and also maybe parts of Wales too. Temperatures for most, again, mid-single figures, potentially up to 10 down towards Devon and Cornwall.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yes, OK, well, still to come, we are debating this European army. Should we be having a European army? Should we take a little listen to what was said?
I really believe that time has come. The armed forces of Europe must be created.
Yeah, should Europe listen to the Ukrainian president there and build a European army?
So much here. There's so much here. Who's funding it? What wars will it drag us into? All of that still to come with GB News Breakfast with Patrick and Emily.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. Look, just a quick one to say, please keep your views coming in on the variety of different topics that we're talking about today. We've obviously got the European army. We've got what's gone on in Austria, appears to be an attack there by a Syrian migrant or asylum seeker as well. Basically, a European army will be Europe taking all our warships, submarines and aircraft, says John. Starmer should stop giving money away in foreign aid. We need to get our own finance in order, says Simon. Keep those views coming in.
Yeah, people are a bit sceptical over whether we could reach 5% defence spending as well.
Well, and would Reeves have to go if we do? Because she's saying we haven't got the money for it. So where's it coming from? So
it's interesting what we have money for and what we don't have money for, isn't it?
Well, and where we find it as well. 1.5 £2.5 billion to refurbish the High Commission in Nairobi, by the way. You paid for that. Well done, everybody, for finding that money for another fabulously corrupt regime. But...
In other news.
In other news, the community of Dunfermline and Fife are hoping to raise £8 million needed to repair and refit part of its 950-year-old abbey.
Yes, and our Scotland reporter Tony Maguire, he's met with the Church of Scotland to find out what exactly this means.
For 950 years, Dunfermline Abbey has been the beating heart of Scotland's newest city. It's a major site of religious and historical interest, being the final resting place of King Robert the Bruce. Today, the Abbey Church is in urgent need of updates and repairs to the value of £8 million. The roof, stained glass windows and stonework are all in need of urgent care. Reverend Dr Mary Ann Rennie says the community's opinions are key to moving forward.
It is a huge sum of money. I think in these conversations, for us, this isn't so much about raising the money. That's something that will happen, hopefully, in the future. For us, this is about understanding how the community value this place. Is this place valuable and important to them?
The Abbey Church of Dunfermline welcomes 40,000 pilgrims every year, and its grandeur is fitting of its royal connections. The Abbey was founded by Queen Margaret in the 11th century, later extended by her son King David and Robert the Bruce in 1320. More recently, it was King Charles's first official visit in 2022 to celebrate Dunfermline becoming Scotland's 8th city. Joint Session Clerk David Williams hopes the community will open up to learning more of the church's rich history when the process begins to discuss its future.
We're inviting the local community to come along and hear more about the history of the church and discuss with us the possibilities for its future. It's quite special. We can tell a lot of the story of Scotland as a nation from this one site. And the more I get involved, the more I start to understand what this building offers and some of the stories that can be told from it.
An exhibition running from March 22nd to April 5th will begin the public consultation. In spite of the eye-watering sum, Reverend Rennie is feeling positive, buoyed by the thought of all those with a vested interest in Dunfermline coming forward to participate in shaping the Abbey's future. Tony Maguire, GB News, Dunfermline.
Oh, well, there we go. Thank you very much, Tony.
We've got a real problem, actually, with crumbling churches up and down the country and not enough money to fix them up.
Yes, indeed. Well, often I find that those churches are now no longer churches, are they? Which is a bit of a problem. So there we go. Well, look, we have got loads more coming your way. I just want to reiterate so many great talking points on the show today. The European army is getting you all going. You know, there's appears to have been another terror attack by an asylum seeker in Europe as well, so in Austria this time. We'll be talking about all of that.
The Attorney General.
The Attorney General.
Representing all of these wrong-uns. Is that a problem for you? Jerry Adams?
I mean, the mastermind of 9/11.
Mastermind of 9/11.
It doesn't get worse than that. It doesn't get worse than that,
Do you
does it?
think, oh, well, he's a lawyer, you know, you have to represent these people in his line of work? Or actually, do you think, well, what does this say about the man?
What does it also say about Starmer, though? Because you put...
Best buds.
Is it not a bit thick to put this guy in a position of power? Do you not think, hang on, well, the public might not like the fact that he's represented Jerry Adams. They might not like the fact he went into bat for Shamima Begum. Yeah, or the mastermind of 9/11.
Well, also, the latest is that senior Labour figures around him have, reported him to the Ethics Committee. Apparently, he's not revealing potential conflicts of interest. He doesn't want to declare financial interests. He doesn't want to do all of this stuff.
It's
Why is that?
insane. It's absolutely
Why is
insane.
that?
So we're going to be talking about that because I think he's going to have to go. And I think there's a trouble brewing as well between Starmer and Rachel Reeves because Starmer's going to have to find the money for an increased defence budget. So, look, heck of a lot to go out today.
Your thoughts, please.
Your thoughts. But, hey, we appear to be tossing money away, including to the Chagos Islands, whose former Prime Minister is now up for money laundering charges because they found bags full of cash, watches and all sorts that might be linked to him. So there we go. But if we are just giving things away for free, we thought we'd get in on the action as well. It's time for the Great British Giveaway. If you want to be one of our 2 new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping voucher. I need a new iPhone. I've smashed the back of mine.
You do, actually. You very much do.
Might enter this.
Bet
And
it works.
£10,000 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
5 years ago now, we developed this campaign called Regifting Beauty. And Regifting Beauty is about giving back to those that are in less fortunate situations than the majority of us. And I was coming across people that were receiving gifts at Christmas. You know how many gifts we receive? Gift sets, items, bath bombs, all of these things that we don't necessarily use. For myself, they sit in the bathroom cupboard all year round. So I was thinking of a way how we can make that better, you know, put that to better purpose. And we developed this campaign 5 years ago called Regifting Beauty. And it's where people can donate unwanted toiletries, sanitary items, skincare, perfumes, and we work with different charities around the country, and they will re-gift them to survivors of domestic abuse. And for years now, it's only really been focused around women. There hasn't really been a male focus. So Ben and I were having conversations, and we were thinking, well, and I was getting comments throughout the years of doing it, saying, why are men excluded from this? Surely it should be applicable to men too. I mean, in the UK, over 700,000 men are suffering with domestic abuse on an annual basis. And a lot of that goes unreported. And there's over 2 million people in the UK that do suffer from some form of domestic abuse, be it physical or psychological, and it's an important topic that we should be discussing. So this campaign is about providing something that may seem trivial, but it restores some level of dignity, and I think that's so important when survivors are just trying to regain aspects of their life. Something so small that maybe sitting in your bathroom cupboard that you're not using could go to such better use. So this year we're launching the Regifting Beauty, the Turnaround Edition, about turning around moments in life and allowing people to have those turnaround moments, which also plays on Ben's, song, Turnaround.
Gotta turn
it fits in nicely with that.
Which I'll be on with you.
For the remix,
it's all fitting in nicely, isn't it?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Patrick and Emily.
You are indeed, and it is that time of the hour where we go through the latest sports news with broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, what's going on then in the sporting world?
Well, I want to start with Manchester United because, look, we all know how big these football clubs are. We all know the money that passes through them. They're almost like government departments, especially Man United, because it's absolutely enormous as a club, the biggest club in the world, I would suggest. Now, Ruben Amorim was given a Sunday briefing yesterday. It's in the papers today. And we know that there is a new round of redundancies happening under the watch of Sir Jim Ratcliffe of Ineos fame. He brought into the club just over a year ago. And we know that last year, 250 jobs went. This is all levels of the club. We're talking about administrative staff, we're talking about tea ladies, we're talking about people who manicure the pitches at the ground and at the stadium. We're talking about backroom staff. It could be literally the person who mans the car park or whatever. It could be literally anybody. They're not on... These people on modest, sort of mid-range salaries, nothing like the 350 grand a week that players can earn on the pitch these days. And Ruben Amorim has stepped up and he said, look, all right, it may not have been all happening when I was here. He's only been there for a few months, but he's saying that it's our failure to get into the Champions League, it's our failure to get into the latter stage of the Europa League, it's our failure to finish high enough in the Premier League and win honours and maintain our level of prestige. They haven't won a Premier League title, don't forget, since 2013, which you'll be aware of, that's caused this problem. And it said it's affecting the environment as well, because if you're a player in the dressing room or if you're going up to the canteen and you know that you're being served by someone whose jobs and their very future is on the line, and as I say, they're on tens of thousands a year.
Could the players not pay their wages?
Well, they could do, but then it's just not done in football. It's just certain things that aren't done in football. It's a peculiar business. Someone described football to me many years ago as an extraordinary business where things just aren't done. I suppose there aren't many examples of where, you know, staff bail out other staff, are they, in other areas of other walks of life? But I suppose, look, it doesn't sound too much to ask when just a fraction of your weekly wage could save somebody's job.
If you think about it, you know, if you've got someone manning the car park, like, roughly speaking, let's say they're on 30 grand a year or something like that, and you've got footballers there driving in Bugattis and whatever every single day, and I mean, all of them, if they all club together, even just the starting 11, they wouldn't even notice it.
I know, but it may be...
I don't know. I think human nature gets in the way there, Patrick. I'm not sure you would.
Well, Marcus Rashford was raising money for hungry kids, wasn't he? I mean,
You'd give away some of your salary to protect someone else's job.
Well, luckily we don't have anyone manning the car.
Arsenal have lost... Man United have posted 5 successive years of losses. They've lost £300 million in the last 3 years. There's also talk of tickets going up as well. We know that the cheapest ticket at Old Trafford now, I think I'm right in saying, is about 66 quid. Yeah. So it's getting out of reach of ordinary people. I mean, if those staff are leaving Old Trafford, and then how are they going to get back in the ground if they have to pay £66 and they haven't even got a job?
What do people spend now on a season ticket?
Season tickets now, well, in London, it depends where you are. United was always quite cheap, actually.
Okay.
But you can still spend well over £1,000. You know, in London, it's even more. But season ticket prices, we think, are going to go up next year. And this is what Ruben Amorim had to say. He said, people are losing their jobs. Of course, it's hard to have that feeling of people not safe in their job. It affects the environment, and the blame lies with us. They play today at 4:30 against Tottenham Hotspur. Let me give you this stat. 22 matches those two played between them. The last 22 matches, they've posted 5 matches between them. It's 13th against 14th in the league today. It's absolutely appalling if you're a fan of either club.
Yeah, indeed. Have we got another one as well?
Let's talk about Erling Haaland. He posted a great picture yesterday on Instagram. Oh, this happens every week. I drop my pen.
Nice pen.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's embroidered with engraved my name as well. So anyway, listen.
In case you forget it.
Yes, exactly. We'll throw it around too often. It gets a few dents in it. No, Erling Haaland was on the pitch yesterday. He seemed to collapse in the 4-0 win against Newcastle. They showed a bit of a restoration of form yesterday. Looked quite good, but they got Real Madrid on Wednesday, and I think we can see a picture now because we've got it in the queue there. That's him having a bit of beef. It looks like he should have beef with whoever tackled him, but he actually collapsed without anyone around him. So that's the problem. But he's having that's what he eats. He looks like he's somewhere in the bowels of the stadium there.
Is he on the caveman diet?
It looks like
all the rage.
He's been on it all his life, actually. But that's in there. He's a major doubt now with an injury for the Real Madrid game on Wednesday. A crucial game for them in the second leg of the Champions League playoff.
Would you go on the caveman diet?
Yeah.
Just meat,
I would.
Eggs, and that's it.
You're kind of on that diet almost.
Meat, eggs and dairy, so you can have as much cheese as you like, as much beef as you like.
Yeah. I mean, I say diet, and just remember that we ordered a Domino's last night, didn't we?
Okay, we don't tell the world that.
Did you have all those things as a topping, though?
We had chicken strippers.
What I've just remembered is that actually there's some left. I know what I'm doing when I go home.
The bit that's left is obviously my pizza.
Yep. How do you justify eating that at, say, 10 o'clock? Because I do it by thinking, well, my day has started so much earlier than everyone else's. So 10 o'clock for me is probably 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Just as I'm shoving pizza into my mouth, I like to say things like, I deserve this, I deserve this. Anyway, cheers, then. We'll see you in the next hour, mate. Right.
Patrick's going to be going to the gym after this.
Is he? Right. Still to come. We will go through the newspapers. But first, have a little listen to what Foreign Secretary David Lammy has had to say at the Munich NATO conference yesterday.
I will say to Trump what I said to the Ukrainians. The UK has just signed a 100-year partnership with Ukraine.
Right,
Speaks
great.
very slowly, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he's got to think a lot, hasn't he? But anyway, more on that next. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's how you can get it around Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We've got rain for Madeira over the next 24 hours, some stronger winds too, but much of the central Med will be dry with some sunny spells. We can see for Monday outbreaks of rain, strong winds, 17 Celsius Madeira. The Canary Islands generally dry, and much of western and central parts of the Mediterranean seeing some spells of sunshine. Unsettled further east towards Greece and across to Cyprus. Thunderstorms, outbreaks of showery rain. The outlook though is for plenty of sunny spells, temperatures in the high teens to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back, everybody. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Patrick and Emily.
We were just talking about our problematic radiators.
We were, yes. Well, yeah, we're going to have to get those sorted.
We live in an old building and they make a lot of noises.
Yeah, it was keeping us up at night. But anyway, it was just stuff about our life there. But joining us now for Making the News is broadcaster Alex Dyke and social campaigner Winston Davies. Chaps, thank you very much. Morning. Can we start, Alex, with you, if that's all right? This is an interesting story that's flown under the radar a bit today with everything else going on. But 1 in 10 NHS patients do not speak English.
Yes, this is in the Telegraph this morning. Nearly 1 in 10 patients referred to the NHS do not have functional English language skills. So some new data out today, or this weekend. The highest single number of translations on the referral service were for Urdu. Around 15% of translated referral letters were written in the South Asian language. Second to that, Bengali, and then after that, in at number 3 was Polish. So this obviously is coming at a great cost to the NHS.
I'm really fed up with these translation services that are costing us millions. I mean, it's across the board. It's not just the NHS. I mean, I do think that if you come to this country, you should be learning English as, you know, a very basic requirement.
Well, I told a story on here on Nana's show last Saturday where my wife had had an accident and broken her kneecap.
Oh, ouch.
And we took her into the A&E in Southampton, and the big video display system in there telling you what to do and where to go were in every language apart from English. They
Seriously?
Didn't do it, yeah, they
in
didn't
Southampton?
In Southampton, they didn't do it in English.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Winston.
So
Does this bother you?
Does it bother me? I mean, look, people come to this country not knowing a language. OK, fine, you learn a language as you come along. I don't think that's necessarily a big thing. The money side of it, though, the translation side of it, it is quite easy to have Google Translate, to translate whatever, no, generally, to have whatever we want. I travel a lot. I like travelling. I was in Thailand last year. There was no Thai there. I put my Thai Google translation on and I say whatever I want to say and play it back to the taxi drivers and whoever else. And it's quite an easy thing to do.
Yep.
In terms of saving money, I think that's an easy
You're
win
a
there.
solutions man.
No, but it's a solution
See
to
a problem,
it.
fix it.
The people can't speak the language, fine, they can learn the language as they come in, you know, whatever your view on immigration is. But spending a load of money on translating, unless it's critical for, you know, life or death situation, Google Translate is good enough.
I agree. I think just extrapolating out to wider society, I do wonder what this says. You know, if 1 in 10 people using the NHS can't speak English, does that mean that 1 in 10 people in England can't speak English? But we'll talk about that a bit later on.
I mean, if it does, that is just so depressing.
Well, but would it surprise anyone? I don't know. Alex, I'm going to... sorry, Winston even. I want to sit with you on this because work-from-home parents make pupils think school is optional. What's going on here? Parents working from home too much, are they, or not enough? What's going on?
Yeah, so the Chief Inspector of Education, Martin Oliver, is saying that, essentially, that children seeing their parents working from home and not putting on their shoes and putting on their slippers rather than going to work is making them not want to go to school. And we've seen an increase of persistent absence from school from 13% in 2018 to 24% in 22. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that if you don't see your parents going to school to work, that you're not going to go to school. I grew up in a single-parent family. My mum never worked, was never doing anything. I went to school.
Yeah.
So I don't think necessarily about this work-from-home thing that suddenly made people...
But Winston, that's the case in your family, that you went off to school despite that.
Yeah.
But I do think that for others, it might be the case, because I remember when I was going to school, I'd sort of go at the same time as my dad or my mum was going to work, so it'd all be, you know, you're all leaving the house together to do your various things.
Isn't this...
You know, is that not an encouragement?
Isn't this a mixture of lazy parenting, maybe children being bullied at school through social media, and also since COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
And they've got no structure.
I think it's about a change as well in the world, all right? We're talking about working from home. We can use the internet to do work from home. We can do our Zoom meetings, and children got used to working from home as well, like doing their school from home. And I think that also we're learning that the children see the world in a different way to how we saw it. And that's the importance of going to school and being able to tick a box, be able to go and get a job and work in a cubicle for 40 years is not a attractive option.
How did you learn your work ethic, then?
From having nothing.
OK.
So then deciding that I was going to get up at 12 years old and go and work in a printing shop, and I was going to go and clean, and I was going to go and work in a hotel, and I was going to go and make something for myself.
So it could have gone either way, couldn't it?
Well, it did for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, but also I think it's worth noting. I mean, I hope you don't mind me saying you were working late last night, weren't you?
I did a gig in Southampton last night, finished at 1, and then drove here.
Drove here, so you've not slept?
No.
Great, right? And you were, no, but seriously, no, but this
someone get me some more coffee.
No, but well
I can't tell.
No, but well done. You were up and about. You drove the van here, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was out late on Friday night doing emergency call-out. I was out yesterday doing emergency call-outs.
Yeah, good. But this is it, and I worry for that younger generation. You know, I mean, you know, but I think the other figure here. Sorry, but if it is the case that 24% of pupils in secondary schools in England are persistently absent from school, I mean, that's ridiculous. But
I mean, that's going to be an issue for the future, isn't it?
I think the last thing on it is about we have got softened and more softening generations that are coming over more and more and more.
I think you're absolutely right, Winston.
Love that, guys. Thank you very much. Great start.
Alex Dyke, Winston Davies, we'll speak to you again in a little bit.
When we come back, we are going to revisit, unfortunately, it appears there's been yet another terror attack in Europe. When is it going to end?
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Meteors. The cloudy and cold theme is set to continue today. There'll be a little bit of patchy rain here and there, chiefly across Northern Ireland throughout the day, but some North Sea coast also seeing some outbreaks of rain. As that moves a bit further inland, we could just see a little bit of hill snow here and there. But for most of us, it is rather cloudy. Best of the sunshine once again will be up across the far northwest of Scotland. It may well just cheer up from time to time, also down towards Devon and Cornwall. But for most of us, temperatures struggling again, 4 to 6 degrees at best. Some milder air just down towards the far southwest. Here we could see highs reaching at 9 to 10 degrees. So as we see at Sunday afternoon, move into the evening again, the clearest of the skies will be up across parts of northwestern Scotland. Eastern Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain continuing, but it's more especially across Northern Ireland where we'll potentially see some heavier rain from time to time. And then for most of England and Wales, it's generally dry, but rather cloudy. A little bit of mist and murk also across the hills. Into the evening hours, we'll see the cloud maybe break up across parts of northern England, maybe later on down towards the far southeast too. So where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will just see a touch of frost. But for most of us, I think most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Just need to keep an eye on the risk of some rain just beginning to move into western Scotland as we start Monday morning. As we move throughout the day, that may well just bump into the colder air, so we could just see some sleet and snow in places. So do keep an eye on the forecast if you have any travel plans across Scotland on Monday. But for most of us, it is a fairly grey picture once again, although exceptions down towards the southeastern corner, some sunshine here developing, and also maybe parts of Wales too. Temperatures for most again mid-single figures, potentially up to 10 down towards Devon and Cornwall.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, good morning, everybody. A huge amount to get stuck into on GB News Breakfast. I'm afraid to say, another attack in Europe.
Yes, a Syrian asylum seeker has been arrested in Austria this time on suspicion of murdering a 14-year-old boy in a seemingly random stabbing attack.
We're all asking it. We're all asking it to each other. When will this end?
Yes, and pressure is mounting on NATO members to up defence spending as the Munich conference comes to a close. Could Keir Starmer overrule his own Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and boost Britain's defence budget?
Yes, it seems we're going to have to spend a lot more on defence, given that it sounds like we can no longer rely on the United States. Donald Trump says everybody needs to be spending 5%. We're currently at just 2.3%.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Huge connotations to that story. Will Reeves have to go? Where's she going to find the money from? But talking of people who might have to go, Lord Hermer, Starmer's great mate, the Attorney General, is reported to the Prime Minister's Ethics Committee after it's emerged that he previously represented the mastermind of the 9/11 terror attacks. How much longer can this guy stay in post?
Big question there. And elsewhere, the government's Chagos deal is in jeopardy, just a bit, as its orchestrator is implicated in a money laundering probe.
Oh, my gosh. All right. I mean, this morning we're asking, seriously, state of that. This morning we're asking, how much more diversity and inclusion, all of this stuff, can we do in the police force and in wider society? Is it time to follow America and ditch diversity policies altogether?
A huge story yesterday, and tennis is reacting this morning to the 3-month doping ban handed down to world #1 Yannick Sinner, which means he won't miss any Grand Slam events. We'll be asking what it means for the sport.
Good morning. Once again, many of us are going to see cloudy skies today. There'll be a little bit of rain and also some hail snow in places. Find out where with me coming up a little later on.
It's just gone at 7 o'clock in the morning. Real pleasure to have you all here. So much news knocking about today. I'm Patrick Christies.
And I'm Emily Carver, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Welcome along, everybody. I mean, yeah, look, the fact is there is so much knocking about today. It's difficult to know where to start. Can I just say this?
I like that choice of clip to discuss diversity, equity and inclusion policies.
Oh, my God.
So we've got a police officer there dancing around to some kind of Pride event or something?
Yeah, Pride event, there we are. I mean, we've had them doing the Macarena at Pride events, haven't we, as well? Can I just say, yesterday I witnessed an arrest in the park and I came into contact with Britain's fattest police officer. I mean, you had to drive around in an HGV just to fit him in it. And you think, what? Can you imagine, all you'd have to do to get away from him is walk, right? What's the point of that? Have we got no standards anymore?
And I think I came across Britain's daintiest police officer. She looked about seven stone wet, and she was very freezing by the looks of things. I was thinking, you know, could you hunt down a terrorist for us?
Well, but again, you know, every single day people see on social media, don't they? Unfortunately now, you know, videos of people with machetes wandering around the place, people robbing stuff from shops, you know, real stuff going on there. And you think, well, who turns up? You know, Officer 2 Ton and you know, someone else should be a circus act. It's ridiculous. What's going on?
It was. I mentioned last hour that there was a height restriction. I believe it was 5'11". That's for men. And that was done away with probably 20 years ago, I would say. But if you look at Peter Blexley, for example, I was with him in Coventry on Tuesday watching Queen's Park Rangers play, and he must be at least 6 foot, and he would have been recruited sometime in the 70s, I would have thought.
The deal was so fascinating. I mean, Donald Trump getting rid of these diversity policies in government, right? He's not making it mandatory across the board for private companies and things, but guess what the private companies are doing? Over in the States, you've got Goldman Sachs, you've got Google, you've got Disney now. They're all dropping their diversity and inclusion stuff, which makes me think they didn't want it in the first place. Exactly.
Yeah,
so could the same thing happen?
Why would you make yourself less competitive?
Yeah, but you know what's unforgivable about that is that people were cancelled for criticising it, you know? That's the thing. That's what's unforgivable about it. People in the workplace, whatever workplace it is, whatever company, whatever line of work...
you can't speak against it.
Daring to talk about the fact that maybe, especially in frontline jobs, you need just the best people for that job, or maybe somebody is incompetent and maybe they've only got the job because they tick a particular box. Those people were sacked for saying that, and now all of a sudden these companies are rolling back on it. I think
and a lot of corporations, after the Black Lives Matter stuff kicked off, you literally had, you know, workshops every single day where people were forced to sort of talk about this, listen to different speakers about everything, about how white people are all racist and all of this.
We lost our mind.
It became the norm.
Yeah. We lost our mind, didn't we?
Minds.
The company I was working for certainly did.
Yeah.
No doubt about
it. OK, well, look, good stuff. We're going to be talking about this a little bit later on, in case you couldn't guess. But, look, incredibly serious story, this, for you. And it brings me, you know, joy to say this has happened again, isn't it? A 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker has now been arrested on suspicion of stabbing several people in southern Austria, killing one of them, I think.
Yeah, and it appears to be a completely frenzied attack, random, and a 14-year-old boy has been left dead and another 4 injured.
Yeah, here we go again. That's what we're all thinking, isn't it? Here we go again.
Are.
2 others remain in hospital. The suspect is yet to be named, has since been arrested. What they say at this moment in time is motive is unclear. Can I just say...
There are reports in some of the papers about how potentially the suspect did shout out Allahu Akbar. We don't have that verified. It's just being reported in some of the papers.
Yep.
And that actually, I think it was a Syrian driver who managed to stop him.
He had a temporary residence permit, was waiting for a decision on his asylum application. So there we are. And it comes just off the back of J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, piping up and saying there is an enemy within. It comes just a couple of days after the Munich terror attack, doesn't it? It comes just a couple of months after another Syrian in Germany rammed a car through a Christmas market. We could go on and on and on, could we not?
Yeah.
It's a problem.
It's not a pretty picture. Earlier we spoke to the former police detective, Peter Blexley.
I'm sick of the rhetoric, and I'm also deeply concerned because sources tell me that our courageous security services and counter-terrorism police are thwarting plots in the UK on an almost daily basis. We will be next, or we will be targeted for an attack like this very soon, I fear. And until we have politicians that grow a spine and turn the rhetoric into action, until we have a criminal justice system with courageous judges who will deport those who really should not be here, those with criminal convictions, those over whom we have reasonable reason to suggest they may be a threat. Until they are, quite frankly, and pardon my clumsy language, until they are rounded up, put on planes and deported, then this threat for us, all of us, is very real. Over recent years and decades, the lunatic left, the hand-wringing liberals, so many of whom pollute our criminal justice system, either as lawyers or judges, have allowed this system to be abused. They have stripped law enforcement and right-minded people of having any way in which to deport so many of these people who quite simply pose a threat, a risk to us all, to our loved ones, and should not be here. Our nation needs to grow a spine. Our politicians need to put us first.
All right, that was Peter Blexley, their former top cop. I mean, does anyone think he's wrong about any of that? You get in touch with Your Say at gbnews.com/Your Say. Loads of good views already in there. I'll come to some of those shortly.
Total complacency of our leaders across the board in Western Europe.
I mean, how many deaths before our leaders stand up to us? I'm sorry, your name has got... No, it's Bob. That's Bob saying that in your say. Yeah, but I mean, unfortunately, we say that all the time, don't we? We say it all the time, and yeah, nothing gets done.
I don't know how Olaf Scholz of Germany can say after the awful car ploughing into those people in Munich, we're going to deport these people, we're going to make sure it happens, you know, even if it's difficult, we're going to do it, we're going to crack down. And then he gets all angry about JD Vance saying some things about Europe.
I just, for the life of me, do not understand why these people, who, by the way, are often, especially on continental Europe, paid huge amounts of money and are often, remarkably, worth a lot more money than what their salaries would appear to indicate that they should be worth. But, hey, that could be for any reason, couldn't it? But a lot of these European leaders, they seem content to stand up for the rights of Syrians and Afghans above their own citizens.
That's not their job. Fundamentally, it's not their job. But in other news, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is reportedly plotting to override his Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, to raise defence spending.
Well, it's a bad day out for Rachel from accounts, isn't it? Because the Munich Security Conference comes to a close. President Trump has called on member countries to increase spending to 5% of GDP, which is more than double what the UK currently spends on defence.
Well, you know what? It might not be that much money after a little time of Rachel Reeves in government. I mean, we're not growing our GDP, are we? So,
no.
You know, 5% of a smaller pie.
Yeah, well, we could stop giving money away to things like £1.5 billion for the High Commission in Nairobi, maybe. But anyway, Ukraine Zelensky also demands a European army now, doesn't he? So what do you think of that?
What do I think of that? Well, I think it's a very bad idea. That's because he's trying to bolster support after Trump's special envoy to Ukraine confirmed European allies will be excluded from any peace deal talks.
So in response, it's believed that French President Emmanuel Macron has called an emergency summit on this issue. Keir Starmer is urging Europe to take a greater role. So, a couple of things here. It appears as though a bit of a squabble going to go on between Rachel Reeves, who's already under pressure, and Keir Starmer over bolstering our army. Second factor is, will we join a European army? Joining us now is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's live in Munich for us. Absolutely. Catherine, thank you so much. So, yeah, big times militarily, isn't there? Everywhere you look at the moment.
Yes, this Munich Security Conference has been going on every year for decades, usually making not very much news at all. This is entirely different. There has been a massive wake-up call issued to European leaders here. It all started, of course, with that 90-minute phone call between Trump and Putin just the other day, followed up by JD Vance talking for 20 minutes, hardly touching on Ukraine at all, but saying that Europe needs to step up to pay for its own security. And then that very, very bleak message from Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday to leaders here, saying that he says, need an army of Europe. And he said that I urge you to act for your own sake. His message is not just that he needs support in Ukraine for the sake of Ukraine, but for the whole of Europe, because he says they have intelligence that Russia is planning to send troops to Belarus this year. He's also said they have intelligence that Russia potentially thinking of going into a NATO country in the next couple of years. So incredibly worrying signals being sent. America have made it clear they want us to all be spending 5% on GDP. There's plenty of countries here not even spending 2%. But what seems to be happening is Europe has woken up big time. Now, Emmanuel Macron has convened an emergency summit in Paris next week. The Prime Minister will be going to Washington to meet Trump after that. And basically, we're going to have to spend a lot, and I mean a lot, more on defence. So Rachel Reeves, we gather, does not want to budge. We know that basically she's got no fiscal headroom. She's already sort of out of money. But it looks like the military bosses have been telling the Prime Minister that defence spending needs to rise to 2.65%. And if that happens, that's going to cost us an extra £10 billion. So a huge amount of money. Things are moving at great pace here, but the message seems to be that we really don't have much choice. We're going to have to stump up a lot of cash to keep us safe.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. It's not going to be easy for Rachel Reeves with all the negative economic news. And as you say, that fiscal headroom has just been completely, well, thrown out the window, hasn't it?
I will also say, you know, in this... While they're doing DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency in the US. Thank you very much, Catherine, by the way. We'll go back to Catherine at the top of the next hour, Catherine Forster. While they're doing DOGE in America, you know, Department of Government Efficiency, and we're now seeing a lot of things here in the UK about where our money's being spent abroad. If we are starting to see the fact that we're going to have to ramp up defence spending, you know, how are people going to tolerate any more, do we think?
I think 5% would be another £80 billion.
Oh, it's 22.5 million quid for, you know, green policies in Nepal. You know, I think we can keep a bit of that for ourselves, can't we? But, look...
I mean, there is a poll on the front of the Sunday Express today saying only 15% of people think Reeves is doing a good job.
Well,
yes.
There we are. OK, so talking of polls, though, we here at GB News every single day want to get the views of you. There's a QR code on your screen there, so you can hover your phone over it, some magic happens, and then you take part in a poll. But do you agree with Zelensky that Europe needs its own army? I'm really fascinated to get your views on that.
Perhaps you do, and we wouldn't be a part of it because we're not part of the European Union. Perhaps you think it's a good idea that Europe forms its own little thing, its own military. I mean, they do already do sort of peacekeeping missions and that sort of thing.
Isn't that what NATO's for, though?
Well, yes, it's a duplication, isn't it?
Isn't this just NATO? But
undermines the United States. Anyway, we'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day. Make sure to stay tuned. It will be on Nana a Quiz show that you find out the final result. gbnews.com/poll is the way to do it.
Well, we've got two massive stories here to bring you now. I am really excited for both of these, actually, just as talking points, frankly, because we've got the Chagos deal appears to be in tatters at the moment because the shock horror, the former head of Mauritius, appears to be a fabulously corrupt gentleman, and who could have seen that coming? But the other story, as well, is that Lord Hermer, our Attorney-General, fought for compensation for one of the plotters of the 9/11 terrorist attacks as well. Let's start with Chagos. Duncan Barks is back with us, political commentator. Duncan, good morning to you. Chagos first, then. I mean, this deal can't go ahead, can it, if it looks as though we've been spending taxpayers' money to line the pockets of the Mauritian leader?
It's the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, Patrick, and it's chaotic. It's another chapter of chaos in the Chagos story. This is the ex-Prime Minister of Mauritius, so this was the man who kind of, like, came up with this deal in the past. And for me, I suppose the detail here is that, and this guy's name is Pravind Jugnauth, members of his family and him have been hauled in for questioning by basically a crimes commission, and this is following a 3-hour search of his home. The police had earlier raided the premises of an associate of his, this is the ex-PM of Mauritius, where they say they found suitcases. I mean, this is just a bizarre list, stuffed with tens of thousands of pounds worth of cash in more than a dozen currencies. That's very convenient.
Yeah.
Also some Rolex and Cartier watches.
Naturally.
Plural, not singular. And what else? And some UK visas.
Oh, God.
I mean, you know, and if that turns out to be the case, I think viewers to GB News can draw their own conclusions.
I mean, Duncan, I was confused, let's say, perplexed as to why we were allowing ourselves, as Great Britain, to be bullied by a very small country called Mauritius. But also now I'm very confused as to why we were allowing someone who seemingly, allegedly, is so corrupt to, you know, be the architect of such a negotiation.
Emily, I'm constantly confused over this because I just don't understand why we would even consider stumping up between 9 billion and 18 billion quid to actually give this money to that country, as well as giving away effectively a chunk of land. And again, the geopolitical side of this is the impact that this will have on our relationship with Donald Trump, who will not be impressed regarding this, because strategically the Chagos Islands is significant.
They seem to be so wrapped up in this sort of post-colonial guilt type way.
It's exactly what it is.
Can I whiz on to something else that I think is... So Lord Hermer, Starmer's great mate, the Attorney-General.
North London lawyer.
North London lawyer.
The classic type.
Now, when he took Silk, Starmer is reported to have given the toast at his ceremony.
Yeah.
So Keir Starmer knows this guy, has known him very well. Is intimately linked with him, not like that, sorry, I should clarify. But Lord Hermer...
I don't think you needed to clarify.
Oh, just in case, litigious. By definition, litigious. But anyway, Lord Hermer, now it's emerged, our Attorney-General, fought for compensation for one of the plotters of the 9/11 terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Al Horsawi launched a claim against the Ministry of Defence, MI5 and MI6. I mean, so our Attorney-General... I mean, genuinely represented one of the plots of the 9/11 terror attacks against Britain.
Not just that, he's represented Jerry Adams in the past. of the IRA, if people weren't aware. And also, earlier this week, he was found to have worked on a similar case in which he acted for the al-Qaeda chief linked to the 7/7 London bombings. So there's quite a slate there of representations. You mentioned in the last hour, Patrick, there is this kind of, I suppose, this system in the legal world where you're the first cab off the rank, so you don't really have a choice as to who you represent. Though, of course, as you rightly pointed out, you can say, I'm unavailable to do that, or whatever. But this is about political judgment. So what is really interesting about this is the knives are now out for this guy, because you have Labour MPs going on the record saying, I think, you know, he needs to come clean, because there are certain things. There's a refusal, allegedly, to declare his financial interests, for example. So therefore, you've got Graham Stringer, a Labour MP, who's criticising the Attorney-General for not being forthcoming about perceived conflicts of interest. So you've got the financial side, where he's been told that he's not, you know, he's refused to declare his financial interest. You've got the list of people that he's represented in the past, people that the most GB News viewers would find pretty reprehensible, I would have thought. You know, so this is about judgment. And I think also, you've got to consider, when Labour are in opposition, they went hammer and tongs after the Conservatives in government, claiming that, you know, Labour will be whiter than white, you won't find any skeletons in our closet. And here we are. We have the Attorney-General. For those people who don't know, that's basically the role is chief legal advisor to the government. He sits around the cabinet table as well. This guy's past is pretty... what's the word? Is it murky?
It's
a bit muddied. Yeah.
Why is it relevant to representing us as a country and the legal advice we need as a country when he's been defending some of our enemies?
So when I say muddied, you know, it's coming back to this idea of judgment on behalf of Starmer, which is you appointed this guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely right.
And actually, it's about political nous, and most political people would go, maybe not the best appointment, Keir.
But also, if you're mates with... Now, I'm sorry about this, but I would not be friends with someone who was willing to represent one of the masterminds of the 9/11 terror attack, take the Ministry of Defence, MI5 and MI6 to court. I would not be willing to be mates, I don't think, with someone who is consistently represented people like Jerry Adams, the group behind Shamima Begum as well. All of these people, if you are friends with him and you know him well, I suspect that says a lot about your own views.
Possibly.
In relation to this. You might deny that, though.
And the other thing to consider is normally this role of Attorney-General is a low-profile role, OK? You know, people don't really know who the Attorney-General is, and that's the way it should stay. Here we are, page 2 of the Sunday Telegraph.
Bang.
This man is leading up that page.
And I think it's particularly bad political judgment from Keir Starmer, considering one of the attack lines against Keir Starmer himself was some of the people that he represented. To then hire someone, appoint someone as Attorney-General who has the same kind of issues seems madness.
And the key thing here is, you know, Labour MPs are now on the record this morning saying we need clarification about this guy. There's some Labour MPs off the record saying it's time for him to quit. So the pressure's mounting.
Well, and by the way, he represented this guy in 2023. Just to clarify as well, this isn't something he did. This isn't something he did in the early noughties. This is 2023, very recently. And also, again, as you rightly pointed out there, refusing to say if he's still taking money from certain people as well. He's got to go. He's got to go.
Duncan Barks. We have to say goodbye to you.
Westminster power couple, nice to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Rock bottom
We're
of that
dining out on that.
Thank you, mate. Take care, Duncan. Great to have you on. Go on then, what else have we got coming into the newsroom this morning, Emily?
What else have we got? Well, the FBI and the US Justice Department are helping the UK police to investigate Southport killer Axel Ritter-Cabano. Wow. In a joint statement, Merseyside Police and the Crown Prosecution Service say they were working in tandem to obtain material. Now, it's believed they are hoping to recover deleted searches from Ritter-Cabano's online accounts. Will we find out more about the motive?
Oh, that's interesting. OK, now, the family of British nationals, Craig and Lindsay Foreman, is rallying to secure their safe return after the couple has been detained in Iran. The pair were travelling across the world on motorbikes before being arrested in January, with Iranian state media reporting that they now face security charges. The Foreign Office is in contact with Iranian officials and they are providing consular support, they say.
OK, and elsewhere, the government has announced a new multi-billion-pound investment in British steel. It's believed the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs and increases to energy costs has spurred the £2.5 billion plan.
And from blockbusters to indie breakthroughs, there are 42 films up for awards at this year's BAFTAs. Drama, Conclave, which shines a light on the selection process of the new Pope, apparently leads the way with 12 nominations. We've not seen it, have we?
No, we haven't. We should go.
We should go and watch that. It's probably on Netflix now, anyway. The movie's leading actor, Ralph Fiennes, is up for Best Actor. Oh, good, we've got a little snippet of the trailer.
What happened? They say a heart attack.
You know how rumor spreads, and 1.25 billion souls watching.
Well gotten, Lawrence. It seems the responsibility for the conclave falls upon you.
Yes, we should see that.
We should see that, and also the Last Show Girl.
I really want to see The Last Show Girl. It's got Pamela Anderson into it. The trailers for that looks great.
It looks good. It looks like it might be quite moving.
I just feel as though that's just going to be one of her standout performances.
Well, let's get a date in the diary,
Certainly from recent times.
Let us know if you've seen it.
Here's your weather with Craig Snell.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Meteors. The cloudy and cold theme is set to continue today. There'll be a little bit of patchy rain here and there, chiefly across Northern Ireland throughout the day, but some North Sea coast also seeing some outbreaks of rain. As that moves a bit further inland, we could just see a little bit of hill snow here and there. But for most of us, it is rather cloudy. Best of the sunshine once again will be up across the far northwest of Scotland. It may well just cheer up from time to time, also down towards Devon and Cornwall. But for most of us, temperatures struggling again, 4 to 6 degrees at best. Some milder air just down towards the far southwest. Here we could see highs reaching at 9 to 10 degrees. So as we see at Sunday afternoon, move into the evening again, the clearest of the skies will be up across parts of northwestern Scotland. Eastern Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain continuing, but it's more especially across Northern Ireland where we'll potentially see some heavier rain from time to time. And then for most of England and Wales, it's generally dry, but rather cloudy. A little bit of mist and murk also across the hills. Into the evening hours, we'll see the cloud maybe break up across parts of northern England, maybe later on down towards the far southeast too. So where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will just see a touch of frost. But for most of us, I think most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Just need to keep an eye on the risk of some rain just beginning to move into western Scotland as we start Monday morning. As we move throughout the day, that may well just bump into the colder air, so we could just see some sleet and snow in places. So do keep an eye on the forecast if you have any travel plans across Scotland on Monday. But for most of us, it is a fairly grey picture once again, although exceptions down towards the southeastern corner, some sunshine here developing, and also maybe parts of Wales too. Temperatures for most, again, mid-single figures, potentially up to 10 down towards Devon and Cornwall.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, welcome back. When we come back shortly, we're going to be debating, is it time to create a European army? Yeah. Do we give in here to Volodymyr Zelensky? What does that mean? Does it make us less safe, more safe, etc.? And, of course, we're going to be talking about some of those other news stories as well. Look.
There's a lot of people in Brussels who would be delighted by the idea.
Of course.
But, yes, if you want to be one of the 2 brand-new winners today, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers and £10,000 in tax-free cash, here's how you do it.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, yes, still to come. Is it time to create a European army? President Zelensky over in Ukraine thinks so.
I really believe that time has come. The armed forces of Europe must be created.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Lisa, you got in touch with me and you flagged this survey because you were concerned as a parent that your child had been given this to fill out.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter came home from school, she was very confused. She was asking why somebody would want to hurt themselves if they were feeling sad or worried about something. So that led to a conversation that we had, and I actually phoned the school and asked them to send me the survey, which with a lot of pushing, they eventually did send me the survey. And when I read through it, I was just completely shocked at the content. The survey says when I'm feeling worried that maybe I should try cutting or harming myself, because it's in the survey, so that must be an option. I've tried everything else, so why not try this?
It is astonishing that some of these are young children who are perhaps being introduced to these, these abuses for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a list of 17 different types of drugs, some of which I've actually never heard of myself. I mean, the wording on here is, have you ever got high from taking drugs? I mean...
And we know that some of these behaviours, self-harm, gender dysphoria, taking drugs, are psychologically contagious. Children do them because they see other children do them, or they find out about them from the internet or from surveys like this. So the idea that this is just information gathering and won't go any further than that is ridiculous. There was a similar survey in Scotland, I think, about 3 years ago, where children the same age, 11, 12, 13, were asked about their sex lives. How many times have you had sex in the last year? How did you have sex? Did you use contraception? Totally normalising underage sex. So the idea that children are just mini adults and we can confront them with all the same kind of ideas and dilemmas that adults have to face is just ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Patrick and Emma.
It's 7:31 on a Sunday. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Yes, so our big debate this hour, President Vladimir Zelensky, he's calling for the creation of a European army.
Many leaders have talked about Europe that needs its own military, an army of Europe. And I really believe that time has come. The armed forces of Europe must be created.
It's incredibly strong stuff, that. And, you know, to hear a ripple of applause from some of those people in the room, I'm not sure. It comes amid fears that the US will seize Ukrainian foreign aid, stop giving them a load of money, basically, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And meanwhile, Vice President JD Vance, he told attendees Europe would have to adjust to a different type of relationship with the United States. I think he's basically saying Europe needs to pull its weight.
Well, yeah, let's have this debate then. Should we have a European army?
Let's have it. We've been teeing it up for a while. We're joined by former NATO commander Rear Admiral Chris Parry and former UKIP Deputy Chair Suzanne Evans. Chris Parry, thank you very much indeed. You think this is a good idea?
No, I don't.
All right, good.
I don't think it's a good idea. I think NATO is good enough for the defence of Europe and also the Atlantic area as well. The fact that Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for a European army is because he's not a member of NATO. And the fact of life is the idea of European armed forces under European sovereign control has got us into trouble before. the United States had to come and rescue us when that went wrong in the Balkans, and also when David Cameron and the French decided they wanted to go into Libya. So this is a really dangerous idea. NATO is absolutely fine for all our needs. And if you're going to create a European armed forces structure, it has to be within the NATO structure. Otherwise, it'll duplicate. And as we know, the motto of the EU at the moment is can't fight, won't fight.
Well, I'll tell you what, it does look as though we're going to have more of a discussion than a debate on this, which is fine as far as I'm concerned. So let's bring in Suzanne now. Suzanne, your views on this. I mean, a lot of our viewers think that this is something that might be quite dangerous, actually, that we could end up as part of some kind of European army.
It's interesting, isn't it? You know, that Zelensky, there's still a lot of people have been talking about a European army. And yes, of course, they have. I very clearly remember Nick Clegg, the then leader of the Liberal Democrats and very much a pro-EU person, calling it a dangerous fantasy back during the days of the EU referendum debate in 2016. Well, Nick Clegg was right then, and he's right now. I'm very concerned about what Zelensky has done right from the beginning of this war, as much as none of us want it and want it ended. The fact is, he has been escalating it, I think, from day one. Let's be clear. What he's actually calling for now is to mobilize a European army against Russia, because, of course, although Russia's in Europe, Russia would not be part of this army quite clearly in Zelensky's playbook. Now, I think that's a very, very dangerous thing to do. It's also completely unreasonable, I think. You've got a Europe that has different cultures, different languages, different laws, different rules, different attitudes, and you really want to try and meld them together into an EU army? It's nonsense. What Zelensky's doing is playing into the EU playbook of expansionism, of making a single European country with a single command. That's what he's playing into, and none of us wants that. I mean, not even the most hardened, I think, Remainers in the country during the EU referendum wanted that. They could see the dangers of that, the tensions that could arise and escalate. And of course, we'd end up with having a single police force as well. Massive problems.
I mean, Chris, though, there are a lot of people, there may not be people in this country who think it's a great idea, but over on the continent, there certainly are, at least in Brussels. I mean, it's not a new idea, is it? The EU's been trying to form an external foreign policy for a long time. They do peacekeeping missions where they install, troops from various countries in Europe. They try and do things as a collective. Not a full throttle military yet, but there are a lot of people who think this would be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of issues here, as Suzanne says. You know, it's basically a big project. We're not part of it, thank goodness. And the worry is that if we get involved in it, then it'll shape our force structures and distort what we're trying to do ourselves. But we've got to bear in mind that NATO is good for all our needs. The Americans aren't leaving NATO. This is the first thing. So all our defensive needs are met by that. We've got strategic nuclear forces. We've got Army, Navy, Air Force, obviously. And within NATO, those structures have worked really well in deterring Russia for the best part of 75 years. Of course, Vladimir Zelensky wants European armed forces, and Brussels itself is saying, OK, we're going to let Ukraine into the European Union. Well, there you go. You've got a country at war that will need defending. Well, as Bismarck once said, is this worth the life of a single Pomeranian grenadier?
Also, who runs this European? I mean, there's so many questions to this, aren't there? Who runs this European army? Do any of us vote for them? Do any of us have a say in it? I mean, we already don't vote for the people who are right at the top of the European Union Commission. I mean, also, how long is it going to take them to reach a unified decision as well, Suzanne? I mean, half of these people seem like they couldn't run a bath. When it all kicked off in Ukraine initially, and people forget this, we were very quick out the blocks. Boris Johnson, very quick out the traps. Germany sent a few rainbow-coloured helmets, didn't they, Suzanne? Well, what's going to happen here? Who's going to be in charge of this thing?
Well, exactly, and who's going to pay for it as well? We all know that the Eurozone is struggling massively and facing recession. How are they going to fund this army? It's just not possible. This, to me, seems like Zelensky's last throw of the dice. We've got a new US president who clearly wants an end to the war, is prepared to open negotiations, which nobody else has been prepared to do until now. Zelensky clearly doesn't want that. But it's complete pie in the sky. There's no way this can happen. One simple issue: military service. Are all European countries prepared to be in this? going to actually want military service like we still have in many European countries. The whole thing is, as Nick Clegg said in 2016, a dangerous fantasy, and that's what it should stay. In the Netherlands, it's not going to happen. It practically cannot happen.
Well, there you go. Nick Clegg was right about something then. Suzanne Evans, thank you very much indeed. Rear Admiral Chris Parry, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, the cost of it. Also, how do you make sure that every country, plays their fair share?
But look at this now, though. Remember the last election? Again, Rishi Sunak talking about some kind of national service thing, and everyone was going, oh my gosh, what a terrible idea. Hang on a minute. Here we are. Could we have to have it? Look, remarkable.
Can you imagine some guy in Brussels saying, you've got to put 1,000 troops tomorrow in, I don't know where.
That's the story. Ursula von der Leyen, when she was German Defence Secretary, had to get German troops to train using broom handles, seriously, because they didn't have enough munitions. Let's put that woman in charge of a continental army.
There's a hell of a lot of support out there, though, in Brussels for Volodymyr Zelensky. Will they listen to him on this one?
Almost definitely. They listen to everything else he does, don't they? Anyway, still to come. World tennis #1, Yannick Sinner, is banned for 3 months. Find out why with Ada McGee next.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Patrick and Emily. It is now 7:42.
It is. Good morning, everybody. It's time to go through all of the latest sports news with broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, there's a big one today.
Yes, indeed. Well, it actually broke yesterday, but it's carried over into today, and it will run for a few more days yet, I would think. And this concerns Yannick Sinner, the world #1 tennis player, the two-time Australian Open champion, the US Open champion, current holder, of course. He beat our very own Jack Draper last September.
Napoleon Dynamite, doesn't he?
He doesn't look typically Italian, does he? But listen, he's a top player. But yesterday he was handed a 3-month doping ban. Now, the issue here was that he took a substance called clostebol, which he claimed was administered by his physiotherapist to just soothe a cut in his hand, which is very crucial when you're playing tennis. Of course, you get your backhands, your forehands or whatever. I think I've got the wrong way around there, actually. But smash. Anyway, yeah, smash, exactly. So, so clostebol also dovetails as a muscle mass booster, which is obviously crucial in tennis. Now, originally, he wasn't given a suspension by the International Tennis Integrity Agency, which begs the question, what on earth were they doing? Because this looks completely dodgy. And I have to say, from that, Wilder pressed for a 2-year ban for Sinner. And yesterday he accepted, with the case having been dealt with slightly earlier, that he's going to miss 3 months. Now, to cut a long story short, so I don't want to get involved in the minutiae of this, but 3 months means that it falls in exactly the period of the year that he would want it to fall into. And that's because he won't miss any Grand Slams. He'll miss Indian Wells, which is a big event, but he'll still be able to go to the French Open and obviously lots of tournaments over there, and the Italian Open, which is the forerunner to the French Open. So it absolutely stinks. Sorry, Emily, go on.
So is this a slap on the wrist, really?
It's not even that. It's not even that. I mean, like, what punishment has he realistically had? If you're lower down the chain and you're thinking, you know, you're 300 and you're looking, well, I'll be happy to earn a couple of million quid out of this sport over a 10-year period, and you might experiment with drugs. And don't forget, lower down, I would suggest the testing regime is probably not as stringent as it is at the very, very top level. But if you're seeing the very top player in the men's game, and of course, don't forget, Iga Swiatek, the number 2 in the women's section, accepted a 1-month ban in November. This is not a good look for the sport, and it makes me angry because I love tennis, and I fear that it's going to go the same way as athletics went in the 80s and 90s, where we had all these big stars who weren't necessarily that successful in terms of their medal haul, but they did have real respect about them, and they weren't doping. And when doping became prevalent in athletics, the broadcasters slowly, and the advertisers and the sponsors and all the big commercial entities, the blue-chip organisations who threw their weight behind it and had them opening supermarkets, etc., slowly pulled away, to the point where we can have Olympic Games now every year, and we can win loads of medals because the lottery bloats the funding of these athletes, OK, for these sports that nobody cares about. Yeah. And 6 months later, 8 months later, as we are on from the Olympics, most people can't name too many competitors who played in it because we don't see, they're not visible anymore, they're not as recognisable because the drugs meant that they pulled away because the broadcasters and everybody else couldn't guarantee the sanctity of those races. More recently, we saw cycling. Now, my previous organisation I worked for were big into cycling, and then when Comcast bought Sky, they'd thought, hang on a minute, cycling is associated with Lance Armstrong, the biggest drug cheat in the history of sport. Yeah. So why don't we pull away from this? Why are we spending £38 million a year on this? We don't see cycling quite as much on TV, on terrestrial TV anymore. I'm worried that if tennis is not dealing with situations or cases like this, case by case, as they appear not to have done yesterday, then my concern is that it's going to go exactly the same way, and that would be a huge, huge shame, Patrick.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. And thank you very much for all this. Cycling, for me, is responsible for a couple of things. Firstly, as Aidan's rightly said there, the big cloud of suspicion around doping. Also, the annoying fat men who ride 3 abreast on country lanes, all wearing Lycra, on a Sunday morning.
Patrick.
Why don't they tuck in one after each other? When you're in your car and you're trying to get round them and you can't get round them and they're all there. They think they're in the Tour de Fat or Tour de France, whatever.
Hang on. May I just point out one thing, Patrick?
I can't ride a bike.
Yes, and there's a bike-shaped chip on your shoulder.
I never learnt how to ride a bike.
You never learned how to ride a bike.
Get off your saddle. Rollerblader. Anyway, married to a woman. So, still to come, we will go through tomorrow's papers, but first, have a little listen to what the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, said at the Munich NATO conference yesterday.
Oh, God.
I will say to Trump what I said to the Ukrainians. The UK has just signed a 100-year partnership with Ukraine.
He really spills it out, doesn't he? More on that next. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here is the forecast for some of the top Euro holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We've got rain for Madeira over the next 24 hours, some stronger winds too, but much of the central Med will be dry with some sunny spells. We can see from Monday outbreaks of rain, strong winds, 17 Celsius Madeira. The Canary Islands generally dry, and much of western and central parts of the Mediterranean seen some spells of sunshine. Unsettled further east towards Greece and across to Cyprus, thunderstorms, outbreaks of showery rain. The outlook though is for plenty of sunny spells, temperatures in the high teens to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
First, mate, we had lockdowns, then we had soaring energy costs, then we had a hike in national insurance for employers, then we had soaring wage costs, and now the government expects people like you to monitor what people say in boozers, and if you don't, you might get sued. I bet you feel like saying cheers to them, don't you?
Look, it just looks like another war on pubs, you know. Remember, they tried to stop smoking outside as well. Luckily, they rethought that, but... Look, we've got everything stacked against us, Martin, and the last thing I need to do is go and get in people's conversations. At the end of the day, a pub is like an extension to your home. You know, it's a public house. Friends go to speak, friends go to meet, unwind after work. It's none of my business what you're talking about. Any good publican, and myself included, anyone that was rude to anyone or on purpose, they want to offend people or they want to dig people out, antagonise them, of course I'm going to step in and say, behave yourself or you go. But look, how can I be on social media talking about everything, transgender, immigration, and people not be allowed to do that at the bar or do that at the table of a pub? It's ridiculous. And these ministers really do need to sort of look at this legislation and see where it could lead, because I'm not going to stop anyone speaking in my pub. Again, if they're trying to antagonise people or they're rude or trying to start trouble, they get thrown out the front door, and any publican worth their salt is going to do that as well. But we're not there to police people's conversations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us here on GB News Breakfast with Patrick and Emily. Time for some papers now, isn't it? The newspapers.
It is, and with Alex Dyke and social campaigner Winston Davies, which is fabulous. We're going to touch on a couple of stories that you may not have seen yet. Alex, endangered spiders halt plans for 1,300 new homes.
Yes, this is a good one. This is from the Telegraph Online. So it's a small colony of endangered spiders that have stopped the development of this. Now, they've had so much trouble, Ebbsfleet, trying to get this in Kent, trying to get this off the ground. But plans to build the homes have been halted now because of some very rare jumping spiders. These are jumping spiders. I saw a photograph of them today. They're little kind of hairy things with big eyes. They look like cartoon spiders. So I guess what this means now is you can't build homes in towns because of people. You can't build them in the countryside because of trees. And now you can't build them on scrubland because of these rare...
Can I just say, I mean, look, we need homes. We need to build homes, and there's question marks over who's going to live in some of those homes and where those homes are going to be built. But we can't not build houses because of a jumping spider. Can we, Wiz?
Well, I'm not an ecologist, all right? I don't know what was... they talk about, if we get rid of the spiders, then it might affect the bees and it might affect the pollination and it might... I don't know. But we do need to build. Listen, I work in construction. We need houses in this country. We need to be... And I'm just anxious about cutting off regulations and slicing away, you know, the fact that these spiders here and saying, let's just build, what does it do to us long term? You know, for our children, our children's children, that's the only concern I'd have.
Yeah, I get that.
It does sound like the bat tunnel issue, doesn't it? That cost millions of pounds. This was HS2, and they were worried about these endangered bats or losing the lives of these bats, and then these newts and things, and everything is then delayed for years and years. I mean, I don't care about spiders, but yes, perhaps they have a crucial role in our ecosystem.
You say that this land, the government bought this land for 35 million. It's now been valued at 9 million.
Oh no! What a bad investment.
This is just another example of it, isn't it? And if we owned somewhere where, you know, with a field at the back, which we don't, but if we did, and it looked as though someone's going to build on the back of it, I'd be straight out the back there.
With my placard.
Yeah, trying to find a rare newt because it would stop the whole thing. I'd go to a local pet shop, like, what is the rarest animal you've got? I'd buy it, I'd shove it in the back garden, take a picture of it, send it to the council, and there you go. We don't have 100 houses at the back of our house anymore. You can stop anything.
And that's why I married you, that kind of thing.
Oh, there he goes with his newt. Anyway, can I just raise this one with you, Winston? Because Elon Musk has had a 13th child. 13 kids, 8 different women. I mean, the man is prolific, isn't he? But he's on record talking about how we need to increase our population. I mean, this is putting his money where his mouth is.
I mean, putting money where his mouth is, saying, yeah, I'm not going to say it. But yeah, no, he's had his 13th kid with his 4th woman.
Oh, is it? not 8th woman, sorry.
I think he's a 4th woman. Yeah, Ashley St. Clair, who's a sort of a right-wing, what do you call it, influencer.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, listen, if he wasn't a billionaire, we'd be calling him a chav.
Yeah.
If he wasn't a billionaire, you know, he gets away with doing anything he wants. I think the lessons we're learning from Elon is if you've got enough money, you can do what you want.
Yeah, but at least we don't have to pay for his kids, eh?
We don't have to pay for his kids.
That's true.
How does he find the time? He's a busy guy. 13 kids. Where does he get the time?
I mean, I wonder where he gets the time to tweet so much. He just makes time, doesn't he? It's like, who is it? Beyonce, I think.
Yeah.
You know, everyone has the same 24 hours.
No, Molly May.
Molly May said that.
Yeah.
Someone said it.
Everyone has the same 24 hours.
Molly May said it, yeah.
Weird that I knew that, isn't it? But
everyone has the same 24 hours.
Yeah, I think it's. But it does just show you, though, doesn't it? If you've got money and you've got property and all that, you can have kids. And we wonder why the birth rate's falling in this country. People don't feel as though they can have them, do they? They haven't got anywhere to live. They're renting a room somewhere. They don't feel like they've got any money. Well, you're not going to have kids, are you? We've got a problem with it.
Yeah, you're a billionaire. You can have lots and lots of kids.
Absolutely. Well, there's going to be a lot more to talk about in the next hour with both of you, so thank you very much for both of those stories. You are very keen to talk about the return of vinyl.
I am,
I will crowbar that in the next hour.
And we're also going to be talking about the return of retro snacks. So there you go, something for everyone.
Absolutely. Loads. Well, in the next hour, we are going to be talking a bit about this pro-Palestine protest that was taking place yesterday as well. I think there's a little clip of it. Some problems because there was also people pictured with placards that appeared to have swastikas on them and all sorts of stuff. So, you know, there's been something like a ceasefire in Gaza now, and yet they're still out on the streets, aren't they? Starmer's right-hand man, Lord Hermer, looks like he might have to go. We appear to be entering some kind of European army. And, of course, there's been another apparent terror attack in Europe. There's a bit of lighter stuff going around as well, isn't there? The BAFTAs.
There is, the BAFTAs.
Yeah.
If you're interested, we're going to be going through some of the highlights there. What could be coming?
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here We do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome along, everybody. Good morning. A huge amount to get stuck into on breakfast today, but we have to start with the fact there's been yet another attack in Europe.
Yes, a Syrian asylum seeker has been arrested in Austria, this time on suspicion of murdering a 14-year-old boy in a seemingly random and frenzied stabbing attack.
Well, I think we're all asking, aren't we, when, if ever, will this end, and how do we stop it from happening again?
Yep, and pressure is mounting on NATO members to up defence spending as the Munich conference comes to a close. Could Keir Starmer as well overrule his own Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and boost Britain's defence budget?
Well, the PM is ultimately in charge, and it looks very much like we are going to have to pay a lot more for defence. I'll bring you the details shortly.
Well, thank you, Catherine. And it looks as though Starmer's great friend, our Attorney General Lord Hermer, well, he's been reported to the Ethics Committee by fellow Labour MPs. It's emerged he previously represented a 9/11 terrorist as well. Surely he's got to go.
And elsewhere, the government's Chagos deal is in jeopardy as we find out its orchestrator is implicated in quite the money laundering probe.
We are going to be having a debate this hour about whether or not it's time to do away with diversity, inclusion and equity, especially in our police force. I had an encounter with Britain's fattest police officer yesterday. Absolute disgrace.
And it is BAFTA Day. Do send us your thoughts and have diversity nominations taken precedence over cold, hard talent. Yes. Is tick boxing going on as well when it comes to the BAFTAs?
There a bloke in the women's category again, is that right? There's a bloke in the women's category.
Transgender, yes.
It's a bloke.
Absolutely. Controversial as well because of her views on the old Trump and everything like that. Right wing.
Well, there we go. Anyway, we've got a load on, haven't we? Here's a little snippet for you.
My buildings were devised to endure such erosion of shoreline.
What happened? They say a heart attack.
You know how rumor spreads, and 1.25 billion souls watching.
Are you English? No, I'm not English. Why? No, because you are pretty.
And it was a huge day of Premier League action with Arsenal maintaining their title pursuit at Liverpool at the top. Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim, meanwhile, has blamed himself and his players for the latest round of redundancies at Old Trafford.
Good morning. Once again, many of us are going to see cloudy skies today. There'll be a little bit of rain and also some hail snow in places. Find out where with me coming up a little later on.
Well, it's just gone 8 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much for joining us here on GB News Breakfast. I'm Patrick Christies.
And I'm Emily Carver, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Yeah, heck of a lot to go out today. I mean, it does appear as though there's a problem right at the heart of government. Well, we're going to be taking you to Austria in a second, by the way, because of the latest terror attack there by an asylum seeker. However, but before that, you know, Lord Hermer is our Attorney General. Now I just feel this is it now. So we've had people, you know, making points about the fact that he represented Gerry Adams, and people making points he represented the group responsible for trying to get Shamima Begum back in the UK. But this has to be it now. So Lord Hermer, Starmer's great mate, is refusing to recuse himself from a variety of different cases in which he may have a vested interest. He's also reportedly refusing to declare if he's still got a financial interest in those cases. But here's the kicker for me, is that as recently as 2023, he represented the mastermind of the 9/11 terrorist attacks and tried to get him compensation from the British government, MI5 and MI6.
He essentially took them to court, didn't he?
Who is this guy? Seriously?
And, you know, he's best pals with Keir Starmer. Now, Keir Starmer has been accused in the past of having bad judgment. He represented a number of dodgy characters who hate Britain, arguably. And he said, no, it's the cab rank rule. I was doing my job. It was my job to defend these types of criminals. OK, fine. Fine. But then Lord Hermer as well, who's supposed to be giving legal advice to our government in Britain, not other governments, you know, not criminals, to our government, has this history.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. I'll ask Aidan a little bit about this now, but we have got a quick clip. This is our Attorney General, right? So bearing in mind what we know about him now, apparently he's got a vested interest in some cases. Apparently he's refusing to reveal what money he's taking and from who, and he's willing to represent the mastermind of the 9/11 terrorist attacks and tried to take the British government at the time, MI6 and MI5, to court. But here he is, dishing it out about how this country, our country, will never deviate from a European court ruling. Here he is.
The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights.
Sorry, I mean, I know this isn't normally your wheelhouse, mate. You do sport, but you are here. I mean, this stinks, doesn't it, really?
Well, it does, but look, Patrick, you have to look at it another way. Everybody needs a fair trial, and everybody has to be represented, even people who we find morally reprehensible. Now, look, the addendum to that, I would say, is do they have to then go on to work in government?
Yeah,
that's what's uncomfortable for me. Yes, look, if you want to make a career out of defending people like that, that's fine. Someone's got to defend them. It may as well be you. Why not take a few quid for it? It's just a bit that extends to going into government.
I think it's the regularity.
That troubles me a little bit.
I think it's the regularity with it, for me, of this kind of back catalogue. I mean, Lord Hermer's greatest hits, where he's like a who's who of the world's wrong-uns. And you think, well, hang on a minute, how come all of these people seem to want you to represent them? I just find that a bit bizarre, but we'll talk about that.
Just an update on the police earlier on. I've learned that there was a 6-foot height limitation or specification in the Met up until about 20 years ago.
Really?
So you couldn't be taller than
For men. No, you have to be that tall, yeah. Outside of London, it was smaller.
6 foot? Well, it's certainly not that now.
No.
All right. OK, well, look, let's put ourselves on, because this is a story that I know is making people's blood boil, unrightly so. A 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker has been arrested on suspicion of stabbing several people in southern Austria.
Yeah, and it appears to be a completely frenzied and random attack. A 14-year-old boy has sadly been left dead, and another 4 have been injured.
Indeed. So 2 others are in hospital, and the suspect, who is yet to be named, has since been arrested. They say that the motive isn't clear. It's the latest in a long line of attacks in Europe by asylum seekers, isn't it? And it comes just a couple of days after JD Vance stood up, spoke the truth to his European colleagues, and they all said to him, oh, no, you're being a bit silly. Well, here we go again.
Should we speak to journalist Michael Leidig, who joins us live from Austria? Michael, what do we know about this incident, and how's the reaction?
Well, the number of people injured has increased. There's actually 5 people that have been injured. 2 of them were seriously injured. One of those had multiple knife wounds to the neck and was operated on overnight and is in intensive care. They say the police are saying that there's no clear motive yet, but there have been several reports that said that the man was shouting Allah Akbar as he ran through the streets in the town centre, what is a big tourism region, with a knife. You've got a local hotel worker saying that the guy was laughing as he attacked people, described it as a bloodbath and horrific. His staff locked people in the restaurant in order to protect them as a lone police officer, as can be seen in some photographs, managed to point a gun at him and then disabled him. And she's seen in those pictures arresting him on her own. So she's been praised. Also praised, incidentally, is an Afghan delivery driver who apparently saw what was going on and ran the guy over and disabled him, in allowing the police officer then to point a gun at him and arrest him. So that was.
Well, can I just say one of the things that always, I mean, you right across the detail of all of this, and that's great. But one of the things that always winds me up with these stories is that, you know, people on the left now are going to go, "Wow, we've had the Syrian news stab people, but if we didn't have that Afghan delivery driver, who would have stopped him?" Well, for me, that's not the point. Right, time and time again, we have these people doing this kind of stuff in the context. What is the mood like generally in Austria at the minute when it comes to? Are they a bit fed up of this stuff around Europe?
Well, you can see that they are, because the Freedom Party, which had been languishing in the polls in the last election, which still hasn't formed a government, got 29%. And that was largely on the back of the fact that Austrians were wildly unhappy about the asylum politics of the country. In the wake of this, you've got all four parties coming forward saying that they're going to act on this. But the FPO leader in the region, in Carinthia, Owen Angara, said that they've been warning about this for years and no one's been taking any notice. And Herbert Kickl, who's the head of the Freedom Party, said that this is a failure not just at a local level or at a federal level or at a national level, but also at the EU level as well. Politics is not dealing with the issue.
And Michael, just looking up where this took place, Villach, a small city in Austria. I mean, it looks like a quintessentially Austrian, beautiful area of the country. Can you tell us any more about the area?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a place that's full of thermal spas in the summer, packed with tourists. In the winter, you've got skiing, you've got all the winter tourism activities. I mean, it's unheard of that something like this happened. And then you suddenly had this incident in the afternoon, cobblestone streets. You know, there's fountains. He was actually arrested sitting at a fountain with the sort of old quaint houses in the background as this police officer dramatically approaches him with the gun outstretched. There were helicopters in operation because they believed that there might be others involved. That turned out not to be the case, but they are probing the connections of this guy to see if there was a larger network or if he acted alone.
Yeah. Do we know anything about his asylum status, this individual? Was he awaiting his temporary residence permit I've got here was waiting for a decision on his asylum application? Is that correct, as far as you're aware?
That is correct. Yeah, he was legally here. He was one of those people who had a pen. He actually had his asylum seeker card on him when he was arrested, and that's in contrast to the guy in Germany involved in the attack in Munich, who was a failed asylum seeker but was still in the country, and apparently wouldn't have been so difficult to find because he was an influencer, a fitness influencer.
Absolutely.
Right, OK. Well, Michael Leidig, thank you so much for joining us from Austria, where this horrific incident took place. Shall we bring in Krish Kandia, the director of the Sanctuary Foundation, to join us now? Now, Krish, unfortunately, but it's very clear, we've had a number of attacks in a short space of time that, unfortunately, have been perpetrated by asylum seekers. Afghan asylum seeker in Munich, a Syrian here in Austria. I mean, what does this say about our immigration and asylum policy across Europe?
Well, this attack is terrible. I have a 14-year-old boy. He's my foster son. And the thought of someone attacking him with a knife just as he was going about his day downtown is absolutely terrible. So my sympathy is obviously with the families who are grieving and those children in hospital. Most of the asylum seekers I meet are fleeing Islamist terror in their own countries. And so this is really discordant with what I understand from the asylum seekers I know. It's inexcusable. What's happened is terrible. But I guess the context would help. So you mentioned Germany. There were 9 attacks of this type in the last maybe 5 years. Again, terrible, inexcusable, horrible. But during just last year, there were over 2,300 attacks on asylum seekers. So somehow we've created this horrible, toxic environment that's a bit of a vicious circle. So we create something terrible like this attack happens that prompts more people to attack asylum seekers and their accommodation, which seems to marginalise and radicalise
how many people
more
are injured,
and goes
though?
round and round
How many people are injured, though, Krish? You know, I mean, OK, I'm not condoning any attacks on asylum seekers, but I don't remember that time that a bloke took a car to a Christmas market full of asylum seekers. I don't remember the time that someone took a knife to the child of an asylum seeker. I don't remember that time that someone took a car to a load of trade unionist asylum seekers who were there in Munich. Again, I'm not condoning attacks on asylum seekers, but what I am saying is, Chris, we can deal with those people who are attacking asylum seekers because they are citizens. We could choose not to let those violent, murderous asylum seekers into Europe, couldn't we? That is also an option.
I think we do need stronger border controls, and we're seeing a Labour Party trying to put that into action. But we also can show compassion to people who genuinely need to flee Islamist terror, war and famine. And those two things are not mutually exclusive. I think we can do both.
How do we make sure, then, that someone coming from Syria or Afghanistan is fleeing Islamism rather than holds certain views that are incompatible with our civilization here? Because I'm sorry, but the list just goes on and on. I mean, the Munich car ramming attack, this knife attack, Solingen stabbings, a Syrian refugee, Reading stabbings here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long list, Krish. How do we make sure that people entering this country seeking asylum are not going to be a danger to us?
Well, look, it's 9 attacks in Germany in the last 5 years. 9 too many by my estimation.
5 in the last 12 months, Krish. 5 in the last 12 months.
OK, your stats may be closer than mine. Either way, I think you're right. We do need stronger border patrols. We need to assess people properly. But look, most attacks that happen are not by asylum seekers. Some of these attacks have got the headlines because they are particularly horrific and graphic, you know, driving a car at people, stabbing people in the streets. But sadly, asylum seekers aren't the only people committing crimes in our country. We need to stop all crime, don't we? We need to chase perpetrators, whatever their background.
Yeah, OK. All right, Chris, thank you very much. Chris, Director Sanctuary Foundation, Krish Kandia, joining us now. Thank you so much for that.
Well, I mean, of course, there are people in Europe who commit hideous crimes, but we don't need to add to it, do we?
No, I'm sorry, I just find it...
And it's a particular random attacks like this that are terror-related that weren't happening in...
We should have... Look, we should have the peace of mind, I think, to think... Have things got better or worse? Did we used to have armed police at Christmas markets? No, I don't think we did. You know, do we have to now look over our shoulder when you go to an alpine town in Austria, just in case a Syrian man attacks your neck with a knife? We didn't used to have that, did we? I would argue, why is a Syrian refugee even in an alpine town in Austria? Really, I don't quite understand this. And people are talking about, well, you know, we have got enough wrongers in this country. You know, we have got enough violent thugs, we have got enough shoplifters, we have got enough bad people, murderers and rapists who are British. We do. But why are we adding to it with all of this stuff? And people just seem to ignore the reality of the situation.
I think it's that word complacency, isn't it?
Tolerance to the point of national suicide, I think. But
anyway, in other news, the Prime Minister is reportedly plotting to override his Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, in an effort to raise defence spending.
Well, this is the Munich Security Conference. It's coming to a close. Now, President Trump has called on member countries to increase spending to 5% of GDP, which is more than double of what we're currently spending, apparently.
Oh, could we find that money down the sofa? Ukraine's Zelensky also has demanded the creation of a European army.
Yes, well, it's just got a lot of you going on the Your Says, gbnews.com/Your Say to get your views to us. But that's as he's trying to bolster support, this is Zelensky I'm talking about now, as Trump's special envoy to Ukraine confirmed that European allies are going to be excluded from peace deal talks between America and Russia over Ukraine.
OK, well, in response, it's believed the French President, Emmanuel Macron, has called an emergency summit on the issue, with Sir Keir Starmer urging Europe to take a greater role.
Well, here she is, the woman of the hour, political correspondent Catherine Forster, who's live again for us from Munich. Catherine, thank you very much. Great to see you again. OK, so lots happening, Catherine.
lots happening. It feels like everything is happening at warp speed, really. The Munich Security Conference happens every year. There hasn't been one like this ever, I don't think. Everything, of course, kicks off really with that 90-minute phone call between Trump and Putin. Then we had J.D. Vance making a speech that went down like a lead balloon, barely touching on Ukraine, on Europe's defence, but making clear that Europe has to step up to pay, basically, for its own safety. Then we had that very bleak and worrying plea from Ukrainian President Zelensky yesterday, greeted with a lot of applause and a standing ovation. And he said that he said, "I urge you to act for your own sake." His message is that this is not only about Ukraine's security, but about security for the whole of Europe. He says that he has intelligence that Russia is planning to send 100 to 150,000 troops into Belarus this year. That then could be used as a jumping off point to attack a NATO member next year. Now, worth saying that Danish intelligence services had said similar, that Russia is looking at a large-scale war in Europe within 5 years if it perceives that NATO is militarily weakened or politically divided. So now Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has called this summit, emergency summit in Paris this week of European leaders to work out a plan. Zelensky has called for an army of Europe. Clearly, Europe is finally waking up to the fact that they simply are not spending enough on defence. They have relied for many, many years on knowing that America would be there for them in a crisis. America has made it clear that that's not their primary focus anymore. So yes, Donald Trump has said 5%. I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. Lots of countries in Europe not even paying 2%, but it sounds like the Prime Minister has been busy in London meeting military chiefs, and they are calling for 2.65 spending. That would be an extra £10 billion a year that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, would have to find. Bear in mind, she's already lost all of her fiscal headroom. There is very little money floating around. So where this money is going to come from, well, I suspect probably more tax rises. But the message here basically is that we have absolutely no choice.
Catherine, thank you very, very much. Catherine Forster there, who's in Munich for us. So a couple of big points here, which is that how long is Rachel Reeves' position sustainable if she's totally at odds with Keir Starmer over defence spending? The other thing is that money, taxes rising. Well, again, those calls to start sending money abroad is probably going to get even louder, aren't they? Yeah, she's probably sitting there thinking, where on earth am I going to find this cash? I mean... Well, I mean, yeah. Where is she going to find the cash? She spent it all. Yeah, I mean, she's probably regretting that 50% pay rise for the train drivers, to be honest, at this point. That was the first thing she did, wasn't it? Of course it was. The first thing she did. Yeah, that's the priority, train drivers. Yeah, in fact, I mean, yeah, this is the problem. It's going to be a big problem for them. But at GB News, we love to hear from you. And we're running our poll of the day. What is it? Well, it's, do you agree with Zelensky that Europe needs its own army? Okay, can we get some early heads up on how that poll's going? I want to know how people have voted so far on that. There's a QR code on your screen. You can get involved that way or do it the old-fashioned way, I suppose. And the final result will be announced on Nana Aqua's show later on. Yeah, so go to gbnews.com/poll and do take part. Yes. So I'm looking forward to what we're talking about in a bit, which is whether or not it's time to ditch equality, diversity and inclusion policies.
You're particularly concerned, aren't you, about our police force?
Yeah,
police service.
I saw Britain's fattest police officer yesterday trying and failing to arrest someone. You saw Britain's daintiest police officer the other day. I've also seen videos, which will no doubt bring you shortly, of police officers doing the Macarena at gay pride events, you know. Oh,
but Patcha, they're just having fun with the community.
Yeah, all right, we have one rape every hour in London and we don't seem to be solving any of those, do we? Anyway, it's time for a bit of your weather with Craig Snell.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Meteors. The cloudy and cold theme is set to continue today. There'll be a little bit of patchy rain here and there, chiefly across Northern Ireland throughout the day, but some North Sea coast also seeing some outbreaks of rain. As that moves a bit further inland, we could just see a little bit of hill snow here and there. But for most of us, it is rather cloudy. Best of the sunshine once again will be up across the far northwest of Scotland. It may well just cheer up from time to time, also down towards Devon and Cornwall. But for most of us, temperatures struggling again, 4 to 6 degrees at best. Some milder air just down towards the far southwest. Here we could see highs reaching at 9 to 10 degrees. So as we see at Sunday afternoon, move into the evening again, the clearest of the skies will be up across parts of northwestern Scotland. Eastern Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain continuing, but it's more especially across Northern Ireland where we'll potentially see some heavier rain from time to time. And then for most of England and Wales, it's generally dry, but rather cloudy. A little bit of mist and murk also across the hills. Into the evening hours, we'll see the cloud maybe break up across parts of northern England, maybe later on down towards the far southeast too. So where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will just see a touch of frost. But for most of us, I think most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Just need to keep an eye on the risk of some rain just beginning to move into western Scotland as we start Monday morning. As we move throughout the day, that may well just bump into the colder air, so we could just see some sleet and snow in places. So do keep an eye on the forecast if you have any travel plans across Scotland on Monday. But for most of us, it is a fairly grey picture once again, although exceptions down towards the southeastern corner, some sunshine here developing, and also maybe parts of Wales too. Temperatures for most again mid-single figures, potentially up to 10 down towards Devon and Cornwall.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, yes, still to come on the show this morning. We're going to be debating whether it's time the NHS and all public services, really, for that matter, ditch their diversity policies. I mean, some of these jobs are going for hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Yeah. We're not getting any better, obviously, as a country. I don't feel enriched by police officers doing the Macarena at a gay pride event. Maybe you do. But anyway, someone who's never done the Macarena in his life probably is Lord Hermer, our Attorney General. He's been investigated now, and he's also represented the mastermind of 9/11. How can this guy be anywhere near government? And why is Keir Starmer friends with him is another question. But here he is saying Britain will never deviate from international law.
The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I'm here in M. Manzi's, which is now the oldest surviving pie and eel shop in London. It's been open since 1892, and as you said in the intro there, it's really sort of a dying breed. One of the sister sites of this shop, the distant relative, owned one of their own other shops in Deptford, and that closed on Saturday for the very last time. They've been open for over 100 years. So you clearly see that there's a declining, not necessarily a declining interest, that's the wrong way of putting it, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be. This is a staple of the East End, and it's now gone from about 300 shops in the Victorian times to under 40 now, and it's declining further and further. Now, also, a couple of months ago, I was in Basildon talking about a similar story with Richard Holden, trying to create a protected status for pie and mash to prevent sort of copycats from stealing the recipe and making it less authentic. So that is ongoing. There's clearly interest in it, and tourists enjoy coming in here. Hopefully, I'll get one of my own pies shortly and have another taste. But it would be a shame to see this go. It's not just about the pie and the taste and the flavour, which is fantastic. It's also about history and community. A lot of people come in here as regulars, so we're just shining a light on a crucial part of London's historic economy. It's a bit of good fun, and it certainly tastes very good as well. Demographics have changed, yeah, and actually a lot of the ownership, the people who would run these shops traditionally over the last few decades are moving out towards the west, they're moving towards Kent, they're moving towards Sussex. So there are demographic changes, and no doubt that is influencing it as well. And as I say, it's important to do stories like this just to remind people of London's history and why it's important to support these local businesses.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Very good morning. Such a pleasure to have so many of you joining us today on GB News Breakfast. But it would appear that diversity and inclusion is very much dead in the United States. So Trump obviously revealed he was going to do away with it, but closer to home...
Yeah, well, he's issued these several executive orders, and it looks like the likes of Disney, Goldman Sachs, all of these big corporations are following suit. But the industry of diversity and inclusion appears to be booming more than ever here in Britain.
Honestly, why are we always an outlier in this stuff? It's been revealed that equality and diversity staff hired at the NHS are on twice the salary of junior doctors.
Yes, and this comes as the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, well, he called out anti-whiteness in NHS such schemes, branding them misguided approaches. So Wes is trying to do away with a little bit of the woke.
Yeah, fair play to him, but, you know, he's also, I would argue, responsible for quite a lot of it from the past. But anyway, Hospital Trust spent a whopping £13.5 million on diversity roles in the year 2022 to 2023.
That's a lot, isn't it? It's not just the NHS under fire for its focus on diversity roles, though, is it?
No, look at this. Oh, hello, is that the police? There's a man with a machete just wandering down Brixton High Street, just hacking away to people. Can you send an officer, please? Oh, no, sorry, our officer's got a rainbow-coloured flag in his hat and he's blowing a whistle at a gay pride event. I mean, come on. What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, you see very similar at Notting Hill Carnival, don't you? Dancing away, having a little twerk, all of that. Anyway, we're asking, is it time to ditch these types of roles and do what Trump's done in the United States and just say, you know what, we've had enough of that. Back to meritocracy.
Well, let's have a debate, shall we? We've got broadcaster Alex Dyke, who's joined us again in the studio. Good stuff. Diversity and Inclusion Officer Katie John Wen. Good morning, both of you. Great to have you both on the show. Thank you very much. Alex, I'll start with you. Do we need to do away with DEI?
Yes, we do. It's crazy. I mean, some of the figures I've seen, £40 million for just for the NHS. It's crazy. I mean, all we've got to do is teach people, if they don't already know, to be kind. It's as easy as that.
OK, all right. Well, I suppose, Katie, we'll bring you in on this now. I mean, you know, I mean, is it actually making the world a better place? It just seems to me like we're lowering the bar.
Well, I agree with Alex already. If we can begin and end the interview with just be kind, that would be amazing. It's how do we achieve that when our natural human state is to be nervous of difference, to feel awkward around people who behave differently to us in some way or another, and we're kind of nervous of how to engage with them. I know one NHS trust actually was very, very short of jobs, had a major influx, and the majority of the influx of jobs that they were plugging were people of colour, and the result of that was in a very, very white county of England, then there wasn't much ability to communicate because people were nervous of people who were different. So if you can create a place where people find it easier to be kind...
Well, hang on, the staff were worried about speaking to the white patients.
No. It was just simply the integration and inclusion of a major plug in jobs. Because one of the things we know that we've had 20% gaps in the past. It's down to about 10% nurses and 5% doctors, which is a great improvement. But we still need to plug those jobs gaps, and that means looking for those
If
jobs
they speak English, it's not a
in
problem.
areas where we're not normally looking for talent, and that part of DEI is about expanding the talent pool and still then using meritocracy to actually employ them.
Yeah, I think the problem is when we go away from meritocracy, isn't it, Alex Dyke? Because there are, Alex, there's always been internships that are only open to young people from ethnic minority communities. There are jobs where people pretty much make it very clear that they want someone from an ethnic minority background or a female. They'll say, we consider all applications, but we're particularly interested in people from blah, blah, blah. Started using the term global majority as well. I mean, Alex, this does fly in the face of meritocracy often.
It does. Inclusion is about being included, but not at the expense of not including people like me. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. And getting back to this money, I want that, like I'm sure you guys do, spent on people waiting for cancer care and children who need operations. I mean, and it's an insult to the junior doctors. It takes 7 years to become a junior doctor. 7 years. And then someone can come in and be given a badge and a fob and be getting £122,000 a year.
Yeah. And Katie, I'll put it to you, a couple of things here. Why is a diversity officer worth 3 junior doctors? I don't think that the vast majority of the British public would think that's the case. Also, how do you measure the success of a diversity officer? Who holds them to account? I mean, is this... What do they have to do? Are you judged on how many Gay Pride and Black History Month events that you have in a hospital? Is that the result of it?
Well, I think on the junior doctor, I was married to a junior doctor, and I know how little they were paid back then as well. And that is one extreme case. I think we're talking about the pro rata 120k person. But yes, it's just true that jobs can be paid between 40 and 80,000 in EDI, but they are people who typically have had like 10, 15 years experience in that field. A junior doctor is literally just starting out after 5 years training, and then a couple of kind of junior doctor placement roles. But those jobs, I think we have to, as you say, how do we measure it? And I think you do measure it in both a qualitative and a quantitative way. I do think and agree with Wes Streeting that some of the way EDI has gone after ideological or festival opportunities rather than looking at measurables. All of the other measurables around DEI do show that in the business world, for example, companies are more profitable that have diverse boards, that have diverse workforces.
Why are they getting rid of it?
I agree with Alex as
They're getting rid of it, aren't they? Google, Facebook.
Yeah, they are.
I'd love to know how much money we've spent painting rainbows on police cars and ambulances when that money could be going to protecting people and helping people who are not very well.
Yeah. Right, well, good question, but we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you both for putting up your case. Alex Dyke and, of course, Katie John Went. Thank you very much to you both. I mean, the MOD's had huge amounts of issues with this. Well, they stopped white men being discriminated against for God knows what reason.
Well, being white men.
Well, yeah, I mean... Thanks, Patrick. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. No longer required. Surplus to requirement, white men. Yes, apparently so.
I just find it ridiculous because especially in frontline jobs where you're looking at the police or the military, as Emily was saying there, or whatever it is, if it really kicks off, you are going to call the biggest, burliest killing machine man that you've got. Yeah. Right? You're not going to go for, the 4'11", 6 stone woman with the fake lashes that you've just hired.
Also, the civil service, I mean, try and get a job there. You've got about 5 pieces of paper full of box-ticking exercises where you have to say, anything that might make you a minority. So what's your sexual preference? Yeah. What's your gender today? Have you ever had this? Have you ever had that? They're just looking for, things that they could say, oh, well, we've recruited diversely.
But I think flip it on its head. I know we've got to move on, but just quickly, flip it on its head now if anyone says that, because we are being told, aren't we, really, that the global majority are what we would call ethnic minorities in this country. Well, sorry, but doesn't that then make white people a minority?
Well, in the world, yes. But anyway, time for the Great British Giveaway. If you want to be one of 2 new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers at your favourite shop, and £10,000 in tax-free cash, here are the details.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16 along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, there you go. Still to come, Foreign Secretary David Lammy. He was at the Munich Security Conference yesterday. Of course he was. Have a listen.
I will say to Trump what I said to the Ukrainians. The UK has just signed a 100-year partnership with Ukraine.
I will be back after this.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
OK, welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with me, Emily, and Patrick Christie's.
OK, well, it's time to go through the latest sports news with broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, there's a heck of a lot to go at today. Manchester United, widely regarded as one of the biggest clubs in the world, are getting rid of some staff, aren't they?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, they got rid of about 250 people last year after Sir Jim Ratcliffe bought the club about a year ago. There's talk that in the coming days there's going to be another, probably somewhere between 100 and 200. Now, this is ordinary people who work at the club and probably have done for many a long year. You're talking about tea ladies, you're talking about people who work in the dressing room, in the laundry, you're talking about people who serve the food around lunchtime, the chefs, the people who manicure the grass at the training ground and the stadium. So these aren't, we're not talking about frontline players here or anything like that on 350 grand a week, but these are the kind of people who Jim Ratcliffe believes is the key to getting rid of. If you're going to get rid of them, it's the key to making Man United lean for the future. And to put it into context, I mean, they've lost £300 million in the last 3 years, and this is why season ticket prices are going up. The cheapest ticket at Old Trafford for an adult next season is going to be about 66 quid. In fact, I think they did that halfway through the season, much to the chagrin of the Manchester United supporters.
So if they've got rid of 250 employees, let's say the average is on 40k.
I think the average would be less than that. Less
so
than
this
that.
is like 25?
I don't know. I mean, there's such a range of jobs that, I mean, if you take it, it's difficult to take an average. But let's say 25, 30. Yeah, I mean, it's not about massive dents in the budget really when you're considering some. That's probably the wage of an annual wage of an average squad player who probably isn't even near the first team. But Ruben Amorim has given his press conference. He did a briefing with the Sundays, which was very private, which is why we can't see it. But he said that people are losing their jobs. Of course, it's hard to have that feeling of people not being safe in their job. It affects the environment. And what he means by that is that, you know, he feels responsible because the team haven't been performing, and he's able to say this because he's not been there very long. This is lack of or low performance over a period of years. So he's basically blaming his predecessors and the players he inherited for costing ordinary people their jobs at the club. And when he talks about the environment, he's talking about going into the dressing room and he sees a guy who thinks, actually, we might not see him next week. Or he sees a tea lady, we might not see her next week and she's been here 30 years. Aww. And it's making them feel uncomfortable. Your question, I know it's going to be, can't they give a section of their wages over to the staff? I don't think it's as simple as that, because I think Ratcliffe just wants the bodies gone, not just the guy.
It's quite funny, though, isn't it, in a way? Next time Manchester United striker Hoyland misses an open goal, well, there goes the tea lady. You know, the next time Onana with his poppadom wrists just flaps at one and it goes straight through. Oh, sorry, the gardener's gone. You know,
I know. 5 successive years of losses, though, and look, it's a fair point, but I don't think it's as simple as saying transfer your salary over to the staff.
Sad, isn't it? Because I assume some of these employees will have been working there for a long time.
Yes,
and would probably, likely, some of them feel part of the team.
Yeah, well, they do. I mean, a lot of them would travel with the team on match days, on away games and things like that. I mean, clubs stay in hotels before the game, before home games now. That's kind of. You know, the sort of the cutbacks we've been
No job for life these days, is there?
There's no job unless you're in the civil service, of course. Aidan, thank you very much.
Good to see you this weekend.
Legend, well done, mate. Right, still to come, we're talking BAFTAs, yes. Oh, there's been a controversy because the first trans person to be nominated for Best Actress. Here's a little teaser of that film, Emilia Perez.
Are you English?
No, I'm not English. Why?
No, because you...
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there. We've got rain for Madeira over the next 24 hours, some stronger winds too, but much of the central Med will be dry with some sunny spells. We can see for Monday outbreaks of rain, strong winds, 17 Celsius Madeira. The Canary Islands generally dry, and much of western and central parts of the Mediterranean seeing some spells of sunshine. Unsettled further east towards Greece and across to Cyprus, thunderstorms, outbreaks of showery rain. The outlook though is for plenty of sunny spells, temperatures in the high teens to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as an upcycling consultant. I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a Dress the Nation, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop. You need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025. What can we expect, fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollals and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to GB News Breakfast with Patrick and Emily.
OK, joining us now for Making the News, some stories that you might have missed. Broadcaster Alex Dyke and social campaigner Winston Davies. Right, where to start? Can we start with this retro snack resurgence, Winston? What is going on then here?
There have been a resurgence in all of the old snacks that people used to love. Cheese strings, Viennetta, crispy pancakes from the 90s and 80s of reflecting. We had Blur and Oasis and bands like that. And there's
Viennetta on your screens there, I think.
There we are, yeah. And they're saying, experts are saying from Waitrose are saying that younger generations are now wanting to eat these older foods because of, retro foods, they're calling retro snacks, because of the re-emergence of bands. And actually, Chardonnay has gone up 28% in sales because of a new Bridget Jones movie.
Chardonnay. I'll always remember that friend at school, she used to get knickknacks and she'd eat them on the bus to work and she'd lick each one.
Oh, great.
And it was vile. But they are very tasty. They are very tasty.
I was born in Wythenshawe Hospital, and the girl who was born in the room next to me was called Chardonnay, apparently.
Really?
There you go.
I've seen you eat the whole Viennetta.
Yeah. Absolutely, not a problem. Right, what else have we got here now? We've got the return of vinyl, Alex.
Oh, yes, I'm really excited about this. It's in the Mail today. It's page 10 in the Mail. So John Lewis has become the latest high street name to join the vinyl revival, announcing that it's going to start selling records again. W.H. Smith started this last year. Sales of turntables at John Lewis are up 17%, so they're thinking, hang on, we could be doing something here. They got together with Rough Trade, and vinyl is back, a mixture of new stuff and classic albums from the heritage artists.
All right.
I wouldn't mind a vinyl player.
Yeah, we can get one.
Yeah, why not? There's something quite sophisticated about it now.
John Lewis later today and get a vinyl player.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll do it.
How much will they set you back?
Yeah, I should have asked that first.
I don't know. But the albums are expensive.
Yeah.
They're not like they used to be back in the day. The vinyl was better quality. They're a lot heavier. The artwork's better. The printing's better. But then they're investments.
There's an investment, right?
It's an investment. Winston, should we talk about the front page of the Mirror?
Yes.
Front page of the Mirror, yeah. So, Royal Aid killer Jane Andrews, who was convicted in 2001 for killing her tycoon boyfriend who refused to marry her, bludgeoned him to death with a cricket bat and stabbed him in the heart. Anyway, she was released in 2015. She was recalled to prison in 2018 and released again in 2019. She now works in an animal charity sanctuary for people that can't afford fees for their animals. However, they are doing a ITV drama about her life, the rise and the fall of her, so it were. But her boyfriend, who she killed, the brother, his name's Rick, very upset that they've had 9 or 10 different documentaries and series made about this lady and the crime, but they don't give them enough consultation and actually input into what's being put out, and then 2, the damage it's doing to them and other victims of these kind of crimes. So his mother, for example, is 97, so she's still reliving this.
Well, she turns the telly on, do you see a trailer for it?
This is it, and our grandkids, and it goes back to that conversation of should life mean life? That's the conversation, and also 2, then when someone's released, should we be profiteering from? Should anyone be profiteering from both the crimes and then telling the stories?
I think the thing is that TV production companies, and this has changed in the last 10 years, they don't wait. These crimes are too recent. If they were 50 or 60 years ago and set back in the 60s based on real crimes, people could stomach it better. It's all a bit too soon.
Yeah, I mean, I always do feel a bit about the morals and ethics of making dramas out of hideous crimes where some of the people are still very much alive and kicking. There is, of course. People want to watch this stuff. I mean, look at Netflix, for example. All true crime, isn't it? It's true crime. But I remember very recently a documentary was put out about the horrific Nottingham stabbings, Valdo Calacane, and the victims' families were quite upset about it because they went and interviewed the family of Valdo Calacane, and some were saying it was quite in a sympathetic light. It wasn't his fault necessarily, it was the mental health and whatever and things. It's very difficult to get it right.
No, exactly. And the thing is, you look at it, you've got, obviously, we're here, we're talking about it. We're talking about, bad news is things people are interested in. So when you're talking about crimes and murders, again, people are interested in it. We were talking about a story a few months ago about the macabre travelling through parts of Ukraine. People were going there as tourists to have a look and see what these horrific murder sites were like there. And that's only been literally 2 or 3 years ago. So there's a market for it. There's a demand from people for whatever reason.
Yeah, there is.
I don't know if we have a quick minute just to talk about the pro-Palestine protest. Another one yesterday. Now, currently a ceasefire over there, but apparently lots of anti-Semitic things were found.
There were. I mean, we've got videos to play to you, not of the anti-Semitism, of course, but the protest itself. I will talk you through some of the things that were seen and heard at that pro-Palestine protest yesterday. Can I just say a massive thank you to both of you for coming in? Thank you. This is obviously a bit of that footage. We'll bring that to you more in the next hour. But thank you, mate, for legging it in this morning. And thank you as well. Was working late last night, not slept, stinged on all the way through till nearly 9 a.m. now. We'll see you in the next hour. We've got loads coming away, including Camilla Tominey, of course. I wonder what she's got on her box office show next.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Meteors. The cloudy and cold theme is set to continue today. There'll be a little bit of patchy rain here and there, chiefly across Northern Ireland throughout the day, but some North Sea coast also seeing some outbreaks of rain. As that moves a bit further inland, we could just see a little bit of hill snow here and there. But for most of us, it is rather cloudy. Best of the sunshine once again will be up across the far northwest of Scotland. It may well just cheer up from time to time, also down towards Devon and Cornwall. But for most of us, temperatures struggling again, 4 to 6 degrees at best. Some milder air just down towards the far southwest. Here we could see highs reaching at 9 to 10 degrees. So as we see at Sunday afternoon, move into the evening again, the clearest of the skies will be up across parts of northwestern Scotland. Eastern Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain continuing, but it's more especially across Northern Ireland where we'll potentially see some heavier rain from time to time. And then for most of England and Wales, it's generally dry, but rather cloudy. A little bit of mist and murk also across the hills. Into the evening hours, we'll see the cloud maybe break up across parts of northern England, maybe later on down towards the far southeast too. So where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will just see a touch of frost. But for most of us, I think most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Just need to keep an eye on the risk of some rain just beginning to move into western Scotland as we start Monday morning. As we move through the day, that may well just bump into the colder air, so we could just see some sleet and snow in places. So do keep an eye on the forecast if you have any travel plans across Scotland on Monday. But for most of us, it is a fairly grey picture once again, although exceptions down towards the southeastern corner, some sunshine here developing, and also maybe parts of Wales too. Temperatures for most, again, mid-single figures, potentially up to 10 down towards Devon and Cornwall.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British Giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us in the studio now is Chia Eaglin and Erin Cobb from Clark's Farm Greyhound Rescue, who have brought along 2 very special guests. This is Duchess.
So Duchess
and
is the one I'm stroking. This is Duchess, isn't it? Our lady joining us this morning, and then over there is Vieira.
Vieira's a chap, isn't he? And Duchess is a lady. So,
talk to us about their history. Now, they used to be racing dogs, didn't they? But now they're looking for a home.
Yeah, so both of these dogs were racing greyhounds. They have retired recently. So now we are getting them ready and prepared to go into a forever home, essentially.
So anyone watching, make sure you get on the Clark's Farm website later on today, because these guys are up for adoption. And I mean,
and they are very cute.
Look how well behaved they are as well. They were a little bit excited when they came in because it's their first time on TV, and they wanted to make a good impression.
They did.
Now
they're both looking, aren't they? They know what's up on
yawning already.
Here. Now, talk to us about greyhounds as a breed. If anyone was going to adopt a greyhound, what would they expect?
I'd say the first thing is couch potatoes. They are the most lazy dog ever.
Really? You wouldn't expect that because of the background?
Everyone has this massive misconception that they need loads of exercise, loads of walks, but they are actually, you know, quite happy with 2 20-minute walks a day. They are so laid back.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's
as long as they're able to have their moments of madness, zoomies, you know, they do get the sillies, of course. But once they've had that, they are so happy to just chill out on the sofa with you. Usually,
they've all got different personalities, and it's just great to see. Even though some of them,
Duchess just perched on the back of your head.
Duchess is going to fall asleep. You're on TV, Duchess.
She's watching.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, a very good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for everyone who's been tuning in. We do have a huge amount to get through in the next half an hour, though. I'm sorry, but we have to start with another attack in Europe.
Yes, we do, because a Syrian asylum seeker has been arrested in Austria, this time on suspicion of murdering a 14-year-old boy in a seemingly random and frenzied stabbing attack.
Well, it's happened before. No doubt it'll happen again. But what do we have to do to stop all of this madness?
Big question, and pressure mounts on NATO members to up their defence spending after Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky demanded a European army.
I believe that time has come. The armed forces of Europe must be created.
Well, and our Foreign Secretary David Lammy has made his loyalties known.
I will say to Trump what I said to the Ukrainians,
The UK has just signed a 100-year partnership with Ukraine.
Well, there we go, David Lammy there. And a senior Labour figure, another senior Labour figure, Lord Hermer. Well, he's been reported to the Prime Minister's Ethics Committee. That's our Attorney General. It's also emerged he previously represented a 9/11 terrorist. OK, does he have to go? Here's a listen to some of his thoughts, actually, on the ECHR not that long ago.
The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights.
Elsewhere, the government's Chagos deal is now in tatters. Why? Well, it looks as though one of the orchestrators of this deal, which, remember, was going to cost us between £9 and £18 billion, is shock horror implicated in a massive money laundering probe. Makes you proud to be British.
It does. This morning we're asking, is it time to follow America, follow the Trump, and ditch diversity policies altogether?
And it's BAFTA Day, yes. Send in your thoughts on some of the BAFTA nominations. Well, apparently, though, there is a little bit of an issue because there's, for the first time ever, there's a man who's in the woman's category. But here's a sneak peek of some of the nominations.
My buildings were devised to endure such erosion of shoreline.
What happened? They say a heart attack. You know how rumor spreads at 1 1/4.
Good morning. Once again, many of us are going to see cloudy skies today. There'll be a little bit of rain and also some hail snow in places. Find out where with me coming up a little later on.
Well, it's just gone 9 o'clock. It has. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Great to have you on board. I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Emily Carver, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, the Prime Minister has been reportedly plotting to override the Chancellor now in an effort to raise defence spending. Fascinating on two grounds, this, isn't it? Because we've had the calls for a European army from Zelensky, massively controversial.
Thunderous applause in the room to that.
Yes, thunderous applause from a cohort of people who are obviously in favour of Europe. But anyway,
yeah.
And then we've got the issue now where there's a bit of a discrepancy between what the Chancellor is saying that we can afford and what the Prime Minister wants to do in terms of defence. I wonder whether or not Rachel from Accounts' days might be slightly numbered.
Well, she might want to spend more on defence, but where's she going to find the cash? All that headroom suddenly disappeared. But yes, as the Munich Security Conference comes to a close, President Trump, he's calling on member countries to increase their spending to 5% of GDP. That is more than double what we currently spend.
It is. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Zelensky, who's, let's be honest with you, not shy of sticking his hand out and asking for something, is now calling for the creation of a European army.
Yeah, he's trying to bolster support after Trump's special envoy to Ukraine confirmed European allies will be excluded from any peace deal talks.
Well, in response to this now, the French President, Emmanuel Macron, has called an emergency summit on the issue. Keir Starmer is urging Europe to take a greater role. Well, it's all going off, isn't it, really? I mean, between that and the fact that our Attorney General might be out on his backside shortly for refusing to declare some of his interests or whether or not he's still receiving a bit of money, and the emergence that he was happy to represent, it seems anyway, one of the masterminds of the 9/11 attacks, to add to his back catalogue, Hermer's greatest hits.
And it's not just us saying it, is it? It's people within Labour saying, you know what, he needs to go to the Ethics Committee.
Which is just as well, actually, because who have we got next? It's Camilla Tominay, GB News presenter, GB News superstar, joining us from Westminster. And have a little look at some of the guests you've got on, Camilla. I just wonder whether or not Jonathan Reynolds might be in for a slightly rough ride, the business secretary.
Well, what I'm going to be asking the business secretary, and Emily, you asked this earlier, where would they find the money to increase defence spending? They might find it in the 18 billion quid they're planning to give to Mauritius to sell off the Chagos Islands. I mean, what are we even spending the money? If we're giving them the islands, why are we giving them any money? I don't understand it. So I'm going to be asking the business secretary that. With regard to Zelensky's European army, we don't even have enough troops for our own army. We've got the smallest army since the Napoleonic Wars. It's down to 70,000 troops. Fraser Nelson, actually, the Times columnist, wrote a brilliant column on this, and he tweeted this. Can you believe this? In the mid-1990s, the 4th Armoured Brigade in Germany had more armour than we now have in the entire British Army.
Wow.
So that's how much our own defences have been denigrated. And also, of course, it's a lot of money. I mean, if you want to increase the current rate of defence spending per GDP, which is about 2.3%, up to 3%, it's going to cost about 20 billion quid. Having said that, with the Chagos bill apparently being 18 billion, that's probably not a bad shout. So I should be asking Jonathan Reynolds about that. I'm also going to be speaking to the former Australian PM, Tony Abbott, a kind of renowned Western righty. I want to know what his reaction is to J.D. Vance's very explosive speech in Munich, and indeed to Trump's conversations with both Putin and Zelensky. He should be very interesting. I'm also, with Rachel from Accounts in Mind, going to speak to two businessmen. Initiative on the show where we're actually going to speak to small and medium-sized business people about the impact of the budget. So we've got two chaps coming in who work in the hospitality industry who say they've been absolutely kiboshed, particularly by the increase in national insurance. I'm going to be speaking to a Middle Eastern commentator about the situation there, and Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge is coming on, and I'll of course be asking him whether some of J.D. Vance's criticisms about Britain kind of sliding into wokery and abandoning free speech is actually sort of the Conservatives' fault, seeing as they oversaw all that for 14 years.
Camilla,
absolutely.
I wonder what you make of Lord Hermer. Do you think he's going to be in the job for much longer? Do you think Keir Starmer will stand by him?
Can you smell blood, Camilla?
Well, Keir Starmer and Lord Hermer are very good friends, aren't they? But I would suggest that perhaps it does show a little bit of question around the Prime Minister's judgment that he should appoint as Attorney General somebody who seems to have made a habit of representing a lot of Britain's sworn enemies. Gerry Adams, 9/11 terrorists. He's supported in the past criminals facing deportation from this country for actually committing crimes in the UK. He's represented, I think, members of foreign militias. He's represented all of the sorts of people that I would imagine the GB News audience doesn't think should be associated with the Attorney General of this country. So I think he's on fairly shaky ground, yes.
Well, I think we better let you get going, Camilla, because you're on in a minute or two, aren't you? Bless you. So thank you very much, and it's going to be a fantastic show. It always is. And no, Camilla, there's a lot for her to get hold of today, and when she does get hold of someone, it's a sight to behold.
Oh, she doesn't let it go.
It's like when Jack Russell gets a rabbit, you know, he just doesn't stop shaking. Anyway,
yeah, just like that.
Camilla Tominay's up next after us, but
very beautiful, Jack Russell.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Anyway, right. GB News, we'd love to hear what you think. Every day we'll be running our poll of the day. We're asking you, do you agree with Zelensky that Europe needs its own army? Shall we have a look at the results so far?
Interesting. 17% of you agree with Zelensky that we need a European army. 83% are against a European army. I would like a follow-up question, though, whether you want Britain to be in that European army, or whether you just want the Continentals.
I think the assumption is now, with Starmer the way he is and the way that he's minded towards Europe, and especially, we mentioned Lord Hermer before, we'll never deviate. We're European, aren't we? We're European Union, kind of. Yeah. So I think we would be in it.
European first, British second.
Yeah. I'd find it insane if they decided to not include us in that when they include us, want us to be included in everything else.
But you can still change the poll. You can still change the result. Vote at gbnews.com/poll.
No, dead easy.
Easy to remember.
Dead easy, right. Well, serious story to bring you now. And look, I'm sorry about this because I've just got a feeling that we're going to be doing a lot of reporting on very similar cases in the weeks and months ahead. But a 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker has been arrested now on suspicion of stabbing several people in southern Austria.
Yeah, and it appears to be a frenzied and quite random attack, killing a 14-year-old boy and injuring 5 others.
He was reportedly shouting Allahu Akbar as he did it and smiling as well. 2 other people remain in hospital, and the suspect, who is yet to be named, has been arrested. Police are saying that the motive is as yet unclear. However, I would politely suggest that shouting about Allah while you do it might be a bit of a giveaway. But let's talk now to former Conservative MP Jonathan Gullis. Jonathan, thank you very much. Here we go again, isn't it? And what do we do about this? Because it just strikes me that this is a problem that could get worse.
Well, as you know, Patrick, I've said on your evening show before, it's simple. You get the stamp out and you hit the deport button over and over again, because this is exactly what Vice President Vance was on about when he was addressing that conference in Munich. That when you bring in fighting age men on their own, no women and children in many cases, from other parts of the world that have a very different cultural understanding of the country that they're now in, have very different views, particularly in many cases towards women, and have obviously just migrated here, not fled for their lives because they're coming from mainland Europe into the UK. This is what's going on. We're having lives endangered of nations' citizens unnecessarily. And these people should be immediately detained once they've landed on our shores. They should then be immediately deported, and we should make sure we've got their fingerprints, we've got their details. If they try and come back in again, we just keep putting them on those planes until eventually they get the message.
And Jonathan, this is one of the, well, I think it's the top reason actually why I personally and a lot of our viewers are so concerned about the numbers of people coming across the channel in boats. Undocumented. We don't really know where they're coming from. We don't often even know their age, and I think Labour are getting rid of those checks on the old age assessments. We don't know what they intend to do once they're here. And it seems to me that there's a blind spot, particularly on the left, but also probably within the Conservative Party as well. A lot of people seem to have the idea that everyone coming across, there's no security problems. Everyone coming is just coming from persecution. Of course, they're all escaping Islamism rather than supportive of it. But then we have the evidence in Europe, don't we, that actually there are some wrong-uns.
Well, absolutely, Emily. And as you said, the new legislation that Labour's bringing forward is concerning because, number one, they're now saying that even though you might not be able to become a citizen, you will have the right to remain indefinitely if your case is approved. And we know that 66% of all current cases are being approved. So Labour basically just rubber stamping many people who've come over here illegally. As you say, many undocumented young single men that we don't know nor believe where they come from. As you say, we're also scrapping now under this Labour government age testing too, many of whom claim shock horror to be 16 to 18 years old because, of course, that improves their chance of staying. Smugglers are actively telling people to say that. I've heard that from Border Command myself when I went down to Dover as a member of Parliament. So this is the truth of the matter here, is that we are in a serious, serious situation for the nation's security. And I just wish that we had someone like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, who are being unrelentant in deporting people with their amazing Tom Horman, but also unrepentant in saying that they're putting their citizens front and centre for their security. And it's about time we start to see that. And the odd little gimmicky video released by the Home Office to try and make Labour look tough on this issue isn't going to work.
Well, the fact is that we have welcomed, or at least allowed anyway, potentially millions of people, definitely millions of people, right across the continent of Europe, from the Middle East and North Africa or Africa to come and settle. And J.D. Vance made the point, didn't he, Jonathan, that it's all very well and good talking about the threat of China and Russia, and that is important. That is important. But we also have to look at what have we been protecting here? You look around, you go around continental Europe especially, you see all that wonderful architecture, you see all the wonderful culture there. It does appear, Jonathan, that we have been more than happy to hand that over to people from Syria and Afghanistan. Not all of them wish us well, do they?
Well, I totally agree with you on this point, and this is why I was so bored of the mass hysteria of the London, or particularly the SW1 bubble. Both politicians, members of the lobby, although thankfully not GB News because they've got their head screwed on. But, the reality that we were seeing of people losing their tiny minds over the fact that Vice President Vance was saying loud and clearly, America cannot always be the ones constantly protecting and defending Europe. You've not been meeting your NATO commitments for many decades. Why is it that we're stumping up the cash, but you can't be bothered to? Yeah. And as you say, rightly said, he still said Russia and China are a threat. He didn't deny they're a threat, but he also said, if you undermine the very things that you seek to protect and allow to be free in the rest of the world, then how can you expect to have the ability to have the right to say those things to other nations? Exactly. In Scotland, we've got this Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act that literally criminalises stirring up hatred, whatever the hell that means. People being told to snitch on their parents around the kitchen table, and obviously ended with what 7,000 online reports in the first 7 days.
It's the kind of thing that would have made Stalin's loins tickle. That particular.
Yeah, investigated for tweets. I mean, it's crazy. Jonathan Garlis, thank you so much, from Conservative MP. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, OK, let's have a little look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom now. What have we got on, Emily?
Yes, this is interesting. The FBI and the US Justice Department, well, they're helping the UK police to investigate Southport killer Axel Ritter-Cabana. In a joint statement, Merseyside Police and the Crown Prosecution Service said they were working in tandem to obtain material. It's believed they're hoping to recover deleted searches from Ritter-Cabana's online accounts. Can we expect to know a little more about the motive?
Yeah, well, that could be vital, actually. The family of British nationals Craig and Lindsay Foreman is rallying to secure their safe return. So they've been detained in Iran. The couple were travelling across the world on motorbikes before being arrested in January. Iranian state media report they face security charges. The Foreign Office, by the way, is in contact with Iranian officials, providing consular support. We'll just say on that, quite a few people are getting in touch to say, look, whilst they have sympathies with this couple, and obviously we all do, I mean, going motorbiking across Iran, probably not the most sensible idea in the world.
Yeah, they were set to enter Pakistan in 5 days' time, so they were really going through the world. Anyway, the government has announced a new multi-billion-pound investment in the British steel industry. It's believed the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs and increases to energy costs has spurred the £2.5 billion plan.
Well, yes, we're going to be hearing about the BAFTAs shortly. Some very controversial nominations there, but if you want to be one of 2 brand new winners, you win an iPhone, shopping vouchers, and reliably informed at your favourite store. Even
I think you get to pick.
Even if that happens to be Harrods.
Don't hold me to that.
Well, OK, all right. And we've said it 3 times now, so hopefully it's true. And £10,000 in tax-free cash. Here's all the money. Oh, here's all the money. Take it. Here it is. Go on, why not?
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, we've got a little bit of time left on the show, so we're going to talk BAFTAs. Can you guess why the nominations for Best Actress are getting a bit of backlash this year? Let's have a
little look.
Are you English?
No, I'm not English. Why?
No, because you are pretty.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, sorry, we had an extra 30 seconds on that. Sorry if you can hear us anyway.
Well, welcome back. You're watching and listening to GB News Breakfast with Patrick, yes, who's giggling away, and Emily.
Yes, indeed.
That's me.
All right. Well, the cream of the crop of the movie industry will take to the Royal Festival Hall tonight for this year's BAFTA Film Awards.
Yes, the film Conclave, which shines a light on the selection process of a new pope, leads the way with 12 nominations. It stars British actor Ralph Fiennes. Let's take a look.
What happened? They say a heart attack. You know how rumor spreads, and 1.25 billion souls watching.
Well done, no, Lawrence. It seems the responsibility for the conclave falls upon you.
Okay, so Judita De Silva joins us now, showbiz commentator. Good morning, Judita. Great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Where to start, really? One of the biggest controversies, I think, is, am I right in saying, is that there is a trans person in the Best Actress category. Is that right?
That's not really the controversy. It's what has been revealed about her in as far as her social media usage historically, because Emilia Perez is this film that stormed to victory. It's for the Best Actress. It was shared between the 3 actresses, the 4 actresses, Selena Gomez, Zoe Saldana, Carla Sofia Gascon, and they helm Emilia Perez at Cannes Film Festival, and everyone knows Cannes is the precursor to award season because they spot who are going to be the gems of the season. Then Emilia Perez has been building momentum, always winning international film, always winning supporting actress. And then this controversy hits about Carla Sofia, where she said quite atrocious, Islamophobic, racist tweets and social media posts, even insulting Selena Gomez, her co-star.
Right.
Simple thing when you have crisis management is be quiet, disappear, put out one simple apology. But Carla would not stop talking, which made it even worse. Now, Netflix has had to pivot and kind of move her out of the campaign strategy for the film.
Judita, I'm very sorry about this, but we are going to have to go because it's Camilla Tominay. I'm so sorry, Judita. Thank you so much. But with that, Camilla Tominay is on, and it's going to be a big flagship political show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to us. We've really enjoyed.
Thank you.
Presenting together.
Doing the shows. Exactly. So lots of love. See you next time.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met. The cloudy and cold theme is set to continue today. There'll be a little bit of patchy rain here and there, chiefly across Northern Ireland throughout the day, but some North Sea coast also seeing some outbreaks of rain. As that moves a bit further inland, we could just see a little bit of hill snow here and there. But for most of us, it is rather cloudy. Best of the sunshine once again will be up across the far northwest of Scotland. It may well just cheer up from time to time, also down towards Devon and Cornwall. But for most of us, temperatures struggling again, 4 to 6 degrees at best. Some milder air just down towards the far southwest. Here we could see highs